Mr. Mayor, ready? Counting down. 2 and 1.
All right, thank you, Ingrid, and welcome everyone to our Brisbane City Council meeting. Will you all please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please. There we go. Much better. Roll call, please.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Councilmember Mackin.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
And Mayor Lentz.
Here. All right. Tom, report out of closed session, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. The council met in closed session to consider the purchase of unrecorded lot number 96. I imagine the information's available on that in the city's foyer, and the council instructed staff as to how to proceed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. All right. So before we adopt tonight's agenda, we have a couple of changes. So because we have some folks who would like to speak on item J, and we have a presentation on item J, we're going to move that item ahead of item H, which is our budget hearing. And then I did receive a request from staff to move item A ahead of item H. So it will be
Item I.
I'm sorry, item I.
Thank you.
Ahead of item H. So it would be J, I, and then H. And then staff had an error that they would like to correct. They say that item H's title should be amended to say approved budget for fiscal years 26 and 27. So with that, can I get a first and a second to approve the agenda as adopted?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Okay, so we're going to start off with awards and presentations, and the first one is proclaiming June 2025 as Pride Month. So I have a proclamation here, and I'd like to read it. Whereas the City Council of the City of Brisbane recognizes and proclaims the month of June 2025 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual plus, LGBTQIA plus Pride Month throughout the City of Brisbane. And whereas all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, LGBTQIA plus individuals have an immeasurable impact on the cultural, civic, and economic success of our country. And whereas the City of Brisbane is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ people in our diverse community, and whereas the City of Brisbane is the only city in San Mateo County that flies the Pride flag all year long to honor the history of the LGBTQIA plus liberation movement and to support the rights of all citizens to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQIA+ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for the greater LGBTQIA+ community, and is an opportunity to act and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Brisbane City Council hereby proclaims the month of June 2025 as Pride Month in support of the LGBTQIA+ community. And here to accept the proclamation is Dana Johnson, and Dana is a LGBTQIA+ commissioner with San Mateo County Pride Initiative co-chair, lead organizer of San Mateo County Pride Celebration, and COSIDE Pride board member. They also hold a space as an activist, author, filmmaker, and consultant. Dana embraces the title of LGBTQIA+ ambassador of San Mateo County, and Dana, it's a pleasure to have you here, and it was great to meet you at the seminar in Santa Rosa. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
And if you have something to say,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you. It was nice to meet you too. And thank you for this. And I was sitting there, and I was hearing you read that, and then I heard you say, you're the only, and I will agree, that raises the Progress Pride flag for the entire year. So thank you for that. That's very affirming, and I don't think you understand the importance of what it does feel like to the community. So I applaud all of you all that are allies, that are making sure that that type of space is uplifted. Just wanted to share little things about me. Dana Johnson, as was shared, I identify with they, he pronouns. I identify as a transgender, non-binary person. I think you shared all my accolades, but I just wanted to make sure that I gave the heartfelt thanks to my LGBTQIA+ ancestors, those who bravely paved the way so that I and many others can be in this space as I am in today. And I carry their strengths and courage with me always. Special thanks to Mayor Lentz, as well as the City Council of Brisbane and any city council staff or city hall staff that may have helped support and make this happen. These actions are more than symbolic. They are affirmations of belonging and visibility. June is recognized nationally as Pride Month, but for me and for many other in our community, Pride is every single day. We embrace 365 days of this year, Pride, and just embrace our living authentically and unapologetically in a non-confined to 1 month type of a space. Now more than ever, it is essential that we embrace and uplift the visibility of the LGBTQIA+ community. We are seen. We are here. We are not going anywhere. We will not be erased, and we will not be misplaced. Our voices will be heard loudly, clearly, and with purpose. We are navigating ongoing challenges and systemic barriers. In face of these struggles, we need allies more than ever in any space that you can be in to just show us that we are needed and we are a part of community. I thank you for the words. I also wanted to invite you all, if you're not doing anything next Saturday, that is the county Pride celebration. We have an amazing parade, so if you're interested, you can sign up to march in the parade, and then come on over to the celebration and enjoy the festivities. I brought a card for each of them, and I don't know if I can approach or should I give it to you, Ingrid, for you to give it to them, but just so that you can have it, maybe you can share it with your constituents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. And once you come on up, I have this proclamation. I'd love to give it to you, and then Caroline will take a photo.
Okay, sure.
There you go. You guys wanna
Is
come
this
on
an
up?
all of us photo?
Yeah, come on up. There you go. Yeah, we can hold on to that there, and yeah.
In the bright blue.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more proclamation, and this is proclaiming June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth Day of Observance. Whereas on June 19th, 1865, 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger landed at Galveston, Texas, with the news that the Civil War was over and that the enslaved were now free. And whereas Juneteenth is a chance to celebrate human freedom, reflect on the ongoing legacy of slavery, and celebrate the power and resilience of the Black Americans. And whereas we commit to our shared work to ensure racial justice, equity, and equality, and honor the tireless work of abolitionists, activists, educators, business leaders, civil rights leaders, and public officials who have made it their mission to reconcile our past, to build and deliver a thriving society for all Americans. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the City Council hereby observes Juneteenth on June 19, 2025. Let us celebrate and acknowledge Juneteenth as a day for our community to learn from our past and work for a more just and better tomorrow for all. Dated this 5th day of June, 2025. And to accept the proclamation, we have Shawnice Stevenson, co-manager of San Mateo African American Community Assessment and Mental Health Initiative from the Bay Area Community Health Advisory Council, BACHAC. And online, we have Dolores Moore. Is Dolores with us, Ingrid? She's not with us tonight. Okay. So, Shawnice, why don't you come on up?
Thank you all. Let me put on my reading glasses. I'm so excited to be here. I come all the way from East Palo Alto, so I left an hour early to get
smart.
here. So glad I got here a little early. So thank you all for this recognition. We're going to have our youth here. This is, we have 3 seniors. There's a lot of graduation stuff going on. And they actually took out their phone and said, "Where is Brisbane?" And they said, "It's near San Francisco. I don't know if I have a ride." So,
we have a street that's like that. I mean, a T-shirt that's like that too. So,
but they learned something new about the county. So I was like, yes, you guys got to know about Brisbane. Yeah. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you all. For over 30 years, BACHAC has been the go-to trusted resource for our community-based and culturally relevant approach that effectively engages diverse communities across generations, whether it's for cancer prevention or education, COVID outreach, census and voter registration, or the mental health awareness, or the kickoff to a healthy journey. BACHAC has leveraged the insights gained from the historical context of Juneteenth by ensuring timely access to information with essential navigation and support services leading towards a healthy individuals, families, and communities. We provide knowledge for life that literally saves lives and empower communities. We published recently the African American Community Assessment that was designed and implemented and analyzed with and for and by the Black community leaders and youth of our community. The findings really show that 48% of our youth were not using substances. For those who did use substances, the reason of substances was to cope with stress, racism, loneliness, and grief. And our research showed that the strategies to foster resistance and resilience promote recovery from substance use and equally effective in substance use amongst Black youth. Black youth have a desire to have stronger connections with the Black community. They seek support, resources, and opportunities and experience Black joy, have a deeper cultural learning to combat loneliness, address grief and depression, and build resilience against racism. And so out of those 7 recommendations came the Black Youth Advisory Board for San Mateo County. Up and down our peninsula, in San Mateo County. In some cities, there's 1%. In some cities, there's 2%. Some cities, there's 3%, which means 2 and 3 students are in a classroom. And so sometimes, even though the classroom may be welcoming, but sometimes it can feel lonely not to be alone in those classes. So when you think about Juneteenth and what you've been doing and having the Black Youth Advisory Board, they really are coming together trying to connect across the county. So recognizing Juneteenth really is an opportunity for us to be recognized for the historical context and the legacy of slavery, but also the pursuit of freedom by the people of African diaspora. And so that allows us to be seen and loved and supported in our community. So just want to take a chance to just say thank you to you all for the proclamation. And I actually have given Ingrid a bag of information, but one of them, and I put some out on the table for the audience, is the Juneteenth calendar of all the events that are happening. Inside of your packet is the Black Family Hangout that is being designed and implemented by our youth. So please come out. Some of our youth are actually going to be entertaining. And then also in there is the Domney Hoskins Black History Museum. And it's actually in Redwood City, and it's open on the 19th. So please go see them, learn a little bit more about BACHAC, and we deeply appreciate the recognition.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Oh, thank
you, Shani. So if you wouldn't mind coming up here and accepting the proclamation, and we'll have a photo with everyone. There you go. No, thank you.
Thank you for making the long drive.
Oh, no
Yes.
problem, no problem. It's a time of meditation. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
That's a way to put it.
Yeah, it is great.
The Zen of freeway driving.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're moving on to oral communications number 1. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. So if there's anyone who wants to. All right, anybody online, Ingrid? Okay, well then we'll move on to the consent calendar, and I believe we have an item that Councilmember O'Connell would like to pull.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item F for some clarification, but I would be happy to make a motion to approve items D, E, and G.
Okay.
Second.
Just before, was that the actual item? It was F and not G that you wanted to pull. Just wanted to clarify.
Yes, F.
F, okay, great. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so item F.
So on item F, which is to take, we had just discussed earlier joining in with a study that was being done with the city of Belmont to access funds for basically to get a baseline and make sure that our inclusionary fees for housing were appropriate. And in this, reading through, it seemed that the resolution put Brisbane more in line with doing other things that are involved with MTC to be able to be to access those funds, and put us on a track where we are obligated to perhaps do a little bit more zoning than I might be comfortable with, or the council might be comfortable with. So if I can get, John, your opinion on this, I'd appreciate it.
Well, the grant is in support of the MTC TOC policy that they adopted, I believe, in 2022. And essentially that establishes a policy that if you have land within a half acre of a transit station, like for us, the Bayshore Station, for example, to have access to OBAG funds or One Bay Area grant funds for the next cycle, we need to comply with the TOC policy. So that's kind of an underlying baseline issue that we have to do if we want to achieve eligibility for OBAG grants in the future. There are a number of categories of activities that need to be met, as I think were outlined in the report. For the most part, anything that's land use related is going to be on the Baylands only, because that is within the half-mile radius from the Bayshore Station. So those will be addressed as part of the specific plan adoption. So the reason we need to adopt this policy is this grant is to help all jurisdictions who are subject to the TOC to achieve compliance. So they want any jurisdiction that's going to take advantage of these grant funds to commit to, yes, they do intend to meet the policies. We've already had several meetings with MTC staff, and we're actually pretty far along to meeting the various policies that are citywide that relate to housing. There's a couple of citywide housing policies that we think are addressed already in our housing element. So we don't see a big difficulty of committing to this, but certainly any land use changes that would be addressed in the Bayland specific plan at that point.
So at the first part of your report, you verbally said within half an acre. I'm assuming you mean half a mile.
Yes.
And also, there was some confusion in my mind whether the half mile would be half mile from our bus stop in town, because
It doesn't qualify as a high-quality stop for purposes of this policy. It's only the train station, the Bayshore Station, is the only.
So these policies that they're requiring us in the future to change policy to meet, are they stricter than what the state's mandated policy on housing elements would be?
They're different. I mean, they have different standards for parking, other standards to encourage transit usage that aren't really related necessarily to some of the state adopted policies. Some minimum densities that are consistent with the state requirements. So.
And does anything in the MTC policies go beyond what Measure JJ did with housing and density and any of that?
No, it wouldn't affect either the geographic area or the total number of units. There will be some average densities, but we've calculated it out. You can achieve their densities within the limits prescribed in the general plan and still comply with the TOC.
And would meet Measure JJ?
Yes.
And
yes.
would that preclude us from having parking at anything that's within half a mile of the transit station?
There's not, it doesn't prohibit parking, it just limits parking to the maximums of maybe one space per unit, things like that. They do include parking maximums.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying those questions.
All right, does anyone else have questions regarding this item? No. Okay. So, I don't see anyone wanting to, from the public, to talk about that. So, I'll entertain a motion to move forward.
So,
Or, okay. So what are your concerns, Terry? I mean,
my concerns are, I'm not sure if MTC if they change what their plan, Bay Area, their, I'm trying to think of the year that it's called, 2050. Mm-hmm. That's always been a moving target. And I'm just worried that by accepting these funds, when the in lieu fee study really is for a very one-off chance that we will ever get that money, whether we do the study or not, if it's worth it for having to meet these requirements. And I'm just not sure how the council feels about all of these and whether we would be beholden to meet other requirements once we join the multi-jurisdictional Grand Nexus study, which one little portion is what we're interested in right at this moment. Not to say we can't benefit from other portions of the study down the line. I just worry that there might be things that we are beholden to MTC to if we agree to take these funds. That's my concern.
John, if you wouldn't mind clarifying, please.
Well, again, I think the bigger question is this compliance with the policy really does tie with the next round of OBAG funding, which is more regional funding for transportation projects, local improvements. So if the city chooses not to comply with the policy, that would make you ineligible for those funds in the future. This little grant fund is, this is nominal. I mean, I think what's at risk is the OBAG funding in a future cycle.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What funding have we gotten from OBAG in the past?
Ma'am, there's a pretty extensive list of OBAG funding that we've received. The One Bay Area grant funding is the discretionary money that MTC controls. So we've used it for paving and we've used it for some construction projects.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes,
could ask
okay.
a question. This is for our city attorney. Is there a way that in this resolution, we could actually add some language that acknowledges commitment to development on the Baylands, recognizing the tenets of Measure JJ, so that it's memorialized in this?
We can do it. It's not going to have legal effect when push comes to shove. These grants I dealt with one last year. They're oversubscribed, and that allows the state and the granting agency to add in all sorts of things that might not be there if there was no competition for this money. So we can put it there. It's not enforceable anyway, but it's also not something that even think about enforcing as long as they have so much demand for the grant funds. They wouldn't even accommodate us. They'd just move on.
All right. So, anything else, Terry?
No, I've sort of said my piece, and I think that the staff has reassured me to a certain degree in the fact that it could mean a loss of other funding. I'm not 100% yay about signing on to all of the tenants that are in here, but I understand the reasoning, and I think he gave a reasonable explanation of that.
All right.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
In the resolution, John, it says planned fixed guideway transit stops and stations. Could you tell me what that means?
That means, for us, it means a Caltrain station, either a BART station or a Caltrain station.
Okay, so it doesn't include Samtrans stations?
No, it does not. And just to clarify, some of the whereases, the commitment is really, if you look at the therefore be it resolved, commits to completing the city's tasks associated with the Grand Nexus study, which is actually the fee adoption. I mean, that's really the commitment we're making as part of this, that we will update we don't have to update our fees. We already adopted the fee, but that's really where the hook is here, is that's what we're really committing to do this. The rest is working on the larger TOC, but it's not committing us to those particular components.
Okay. No, thank you for the clarification. All right. So, Terry, now that you feel satisfied, but I know you're not excited, but would you be willing to make the motion to?
I'd rather someone else did.
Okay, Madison or anyone? Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt An ordinance waiving second reading, amending the municipal code concerning notices of violations. Is that, let me just make sure, that's what's in.
I'm sorry, it's the next item, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
let me just pull that. Okay. Okay, it was item F, right? Okay.
I
So-
believe there was a, read the item G on your script.
I'm sorry, let me pull this thing back.
I think it was misnumbered in the script.
This is true. Okay, no worries. Okay. Adopt the resolution, which is resolution number 2025. Resolution of the City Council and the City of Brisbane committing to take steps towards achieving compliance with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's transit-oriented community policy as a condition for MTC to allocate regional discretionary funding to the Housing Policy Development Project. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I oppose.
okay. All right. Moving on to item J. Consider and provide direction on support of the Brisbane Shuttle Program for fiscal year 2025-26. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my apologies. We're joined tonight by John Ford, who's the Executive Director of Commute.org. He'll be making a presentation momentarily. The item before you is to consider from the options listed in the staff report on page 132 to potentially fund the shuttle system that Commute.org runs on behalf of the city. As detailed in the staff report, there have been ongoing conversations between the various parties that have historically funded this service, and due to the challenges associated with securing some of those funding sources and increases in costs, we are faced with increased costs, let's put it that way. John, why don't you come on up and make your presentation?
Good evening, Mayor Lentz and members of the council. John Ford, Executive Director at Commute.org. Thanks for the opportunity to get here in front of you today. The staff report was very thorough, and it was very kind of dense in its direction. So I'm here to provide more context and background to give you a little bit better idea of what's going on. So next slide, please. I promise I'll get through these pretty quick, but there are a few of them to get through. First of all is kind of explaining what the Commute.org shuttle program is in general. So Commute.org, by the way, we're a joint powers authority. The city of Brisbane is one of 20 members in our agency. We manage 19 different first last mile shuttle routes throughout the county. The routes all serve either a Caltrain, a BART, or a ferry station, or sometimes a combination of both. All of our shuttles that we manage are commuter-operated shuttle, commuter-style shuttles, which means they operate only in the morning and the evenings. They're all considered what they call first last mile. And what sets our shuttles apart from most is that they're public-private partnership shuttles in most cases. So it's a combination of public funding and private funding that facilitates the operation of our shuttles. We average about 350,000 riders per year, kind of post-pandemic ridership. We're still growing that back to where we used to be. All of our shuttles are no fare, ADA accessible, have bike racks, and they're open to the public. That's the common thing about all of our shuttles. Next slide, please. This is just a quick graphic of showing where we operate our shuttles throughout San Mateo County. Not every city has a shuttle. We don't participate in all, we don't manage all the shuttles that are on this list, but most of them we do. You'll see by the color coding, the routes that serve Caltrain or BART or the ferry are those that serve the combination of both the blue and the red. Next slide. So driving down into what the Brisbane Shuttle Program is, the routes that are part of the Brisbane Shuttle Program were established back in the 1990s. Long before I was ever involved in this, and long before I think most of you were involved in council, there was some wise people here in the city of Brisbane that decided that they wanted to set up a shuttle program that would do two things. Primarily, it would drive economic development in the Crocker Park area. And secondly, it would provide ridership opportunities for residents in the community to be able to connect to both BART and to Caltrain. There are currently two different routes that serve the city, a total of 3 different vehicles operating on those 2 routes. We use acronyms, so bear with me because we're going to use these a couple times as we go through the slides. But BBC is the Bayshore Brisbane Caltrain shuttle, and the BCP is the one that serves Balboa Park BART. Those are the 2 shuttles. BART has 2 shuttles. Caltrain has 1 shuttle at this point in time. Our role at commute.org is to apply for the grants, to manage the consortium, which are the contributing partners to the service. We contract for the service, we provide the operational support and all the customer service. We design the routes, we deal with all the customers, we do all of that. We don't actually operate the shuttles ourselves. We contract those through a third party, and actually the contract is actually held by Samtrans. Just as a point of reference, Sierra Point shuttles operate independently. They're not part of the commute.org shuttle program. They're privately funded, and they currently do not receive any grant funding from the TA. Next slide, please. This just shows a picture of the 2 different routes that we currently operate. The one shown in red is the BBC, or the Caltrain route, and the one that's in blue primarily is the Balboa Park BART, or the BCP shuttle. The little dots show the stops we make all the way throughout the service area. We go through, obviously, well, you can see where we go to. The one on the left is a little misleading. It's not quite that close to the BART station, and you'll see another slide I have later on which shows more of a Google map, which will show you that to you. But the routes are identical in terms of the stops that they make within the service areas that they serve, right? So if it's the Caltrain route or the BART route, they're basically serving all the same stops. Next slide. A little bit of details about the 2. Again, the Caltrain route, we currently do 9 daily trips, 5 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. In April of this past year, we had about 1,250 monthly boardings on that particular service. We generate about 8,500 annual single occupant vehicle trip reductions. That's why commute.org is involved in this. There's other reasons for the city to be involved in providing shuttle services that we talked about before. But the reason that commute.org is managing this is that we provide opportunities for people to do something other than driving alone, to get to their work, to also leave their residences and connect to transit. On the Caltrain route, the matching funds have been provided by Caltrain historically. So Caltrain is the funding partner that we use for the BBC route. They pay 25% of the matching, or 25% of the overall funds which are generated through the Transportation Authority's grant funding. On the Crocker Park route, we run 14 different trips. Remember, there's 2 shuttles there, so we have double the capacity there. And in April of this past year, last month, I guess it was, or 2 months ago, we did generate about 3,000 monthly boardings on that particular route. That turns into about 31,000 annual single occupant vehicle trips eliminated. Crocker Park, unlike having Caltrain on the BBC route, the Crocker Park route is supported through consortium member contributions. And consortium members, which we're going to talk about a little bit in more detail in a couple of slides, are the contributing members that provide the funds. Again, in the case of the Crocker Park, it's 25% of the total operating costs come from the consortium members. Next slide. Into the Wayback Time Machine, this shows the past 10 years of ridership on the Caltrain route. If you take a look all at the y-axis, you're going to see that it goes up to this about 1,600, 1,800 riders back in the 2016 timeframe. If you follow along, you'll see about where the pandemic hits in April of 2020, and then as we come out of the pandemic, you see the ridership as it continues to grow to the left hand or to the right hand side of that slide. Next slide, please. This is the Crocker Park, or the BCP route that serves BART. You'll notice, again, the scale is very different on the side. It's now not at 2,000 at a top, it's 10,000 at a top. We've actually generated over 9,000 riders at our peak months on that particular route. You'll see the drop off when we get to the pandemic is very extreme. And the return of those riders to the system has been slower than it has been on the Caltrain route. We'll talk about a couple of reasons why that might be as we go forward. But those are historical ridership data for that. And again, this ridership data is a combination of both residents and employees that are using the service, both to get to or from BART or Caltrain. Next slide, please. I mentioned the consortium partners before, and these are the contributing partners. This is the current list of contributing partners that are supporting the Crocker Park BCP BART service. Remember, Caltrain, through their generosity, is providing the matching funds for the Caltrain route. These are the contributing partners that have been providing the service or providing the contributions for the BCP route. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of where they're located, the little green check marks show you on the map of Brisbane where those contributing partners are located. Those are their business locations. And important to understand, because the next slide I'm going to show you this is the current consortium members. Next slide, please. The red X's are the former contributing partners. And these are the businesses that are either no longer in business, they may have relocated, they may have moved. In other cases, they're just contributing partners who've decided not to contribute anymore because it's a voluntary contribution. None of these employers are required to participate in the program. They do so to attract, retain their talent, their employees, provide them an opportunity. So a couple of those red X's have been very important losses to us because of the size, the way the consortium contributions work. The larger the employer, the larger their contribution. So some of those that we've lost: Alta Motors, DHL, Dolby, Expeditors, Williams-Sonoma, BB, VWR, Intermune, Monster Cable, and I could make the list go on, but it's just really meant to show you that part of the reason we're here tonight, and part of the reason we're in the situation we are, is just the change in partnerships that we have up in that area for a number of different reasons, right? And the shuttle program has just kind of borne the brunt of that as the contributions have decreased. Next slide, please. So why are we here and why are we talking about this and how did we get to this situation? So we at commute.org, we apply for grant funds every 2 years, and the current funding cycle will provide funds for the FY26-27 2-year cycle. Those applications were submitted to the TA in February, along with 15 other routes that we submitted applications for. Probably, I think there's 23 routes in San Mateo County that were considered for funding. And at the same time that we were doing that, we were at the end of a contract with our current vendor for the service. So Samtrans went out and did an RFP. The RFP was not successful. The RFP got pulled. So instead of having a new vendor, we have the existing vendor on a 2-year extension, which was just actually approved yesterday by Samtrans, but it's resulted in a 70% increase in the operating costs to provide the service. So same vendor, same vehicles, same service, but a 70% increase for the next 2 years. That sounds extreme. It's better than the 120% or so increase that we were going to be anticipating if we had the RFP go through. Complicated.
Why is that the case?
Pardon me?
Why is that why would it be 120 to 70? Seems like
Oh, no, if there had been a new vendor
a new vendor.
through the RFP process, the cost was likely to be 120% higher than what we're currently paying.
Do you mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because I have questions
Of
that are
course.
like now,
Yeah.
from minutes ago.
Yeah, however you want to do it.
So what are they attributing the increase to?
Well, we are at the end of the 10th year of a contract. So
Okay.
they were on a fixed rate contract. It was a 10-year contract with their pricing in it for a 10-year period. It was 5 years guaranteed with 5 years of option years, and we exercised all 5 option years. And they were way below where the market rates were for shuttle services. So they were significantly below for many years on that contract. And so as they came out of the end of that contract, we went out to the public to do an RFP, and the bidding companies, including the incumbent, their prices were, as I was mentioning, 110, 120, 140% where we were currently. It was just catching up. It was just catching up to what the market rates were. We benefited for 10 years by having a great contract at a really good price, and that just came to an end.
So, some observations. I mean, so now this is a 2-year extension
Correct,
at 70% increase.
correct.
So that means in 2 years, we're gonna be facing this problem again. Correct.
There will be a new RFP process, or there might be something different. We're not exactly sure. There actually is a study that was approved about an hour ago by the TA to take another hard look at how we fund and operate and contract for shuttle services starting 2 years from now.
Because, like, I mean, I guess my concern is, like, is there a plan on commute.org and TAs, from the TA's perspective, to a lot more? Or, because what I'm seeing coming down the pipeline here, because this has happened to us already. We've been in the bus business before against our will. And it just got astronomical year after year after year, to the point that we had partnerships, and then we started supplementing more and more and more, until all of a sudden we were paying for the bus ourselves. And then it got so astronomical, we had to be the bad guys to eliminate the bus. It puts us in a really bad position. So aside from, trying to increase the consortium funding, I imagine, like, the TAs had the benefit of having 10 years at lower than market rate costs. So what's the plan going forward? Is there a plan to increase on your end? Or how are you going to are you going to be able to secure more funding? Or is this gap going to widen for us further and further and further and
Right.
further?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So the grant funding that we use to provide the majority of the funding, 75% on most of the routes, comes from Measure A. And there's a Measure A set aside. Inside Measure A, there is a shuttle program set aside. And it's a percentage of the Measure A funds, which is sales tax revenue that comes into the TA. And that's the funds that they use. That has limits, right? So it's whatever is prescribed within Measure A for those funds. A couple things can happen. One, you can either fund fewer shuttles, right? It can become more competitive. So you can have the same amount of money, because Measure A is going to have another 6 years until it has to be renewed. And so how do you, I guess it's 8 years actually, 2 years now, and then there'll be a 6 years at the back end of this. And so part of the reason why the TA is going out and doing a new analysis of this, because everybody understands it's not sustainable. You just can't fund enough shuttles. The costs get to be too great. I don't know the example that you're describing of
We did
you
school
guys
bus.
absorbing it. And what you saw was costs just continued to increase. It was scary how quickly they increased.
Yeah.
And that was happening in the shuttle industry as well. It's just that we were protected from that to a large extent because of the contract that we had with our vendor. But going forward, we would love to do a lot of this, but it may not be feasible going forward.
So is every other city that you listed, are you also coming to them with a funding shortfall, or do they have more consortium contributors?
It depends. Some cities are paying 100% of the cost themselves, and they've just agreed to take it on because for whatever reasons they've chosen to. In other cases, we were able to increase the grant funding to the maximum levels, whereas before they might not have been at the maximum level. So the maximum you can apply for is 75% of the grant funds. You have to come up with 25% matching. So we had some routes that were not already at that level. So some of the costs got absorbed by doing that, but that's part of the way it was done. In other cases, we've lost some shuttles, a couple shuttles, not because cities weren't willing to participate, but because of the program rules and restrictions and the funding partners that we had, they weren't able to come up with the additional increase.
So I know one of the, big things about this program is that it's free, but it seems like with the market conditions, that because the costs are getting so out of control, you maybe are, you have to evaluate whether it being free is really, would you rather have no shuttle or a shuttle that maybe had a small cost? So would commute.org ever consider implementing a cost for riders?
So that's a TA decision. Commute.org doesn't set the rules.
Got it.
So our shuttles have to be open to the public. They have to be fare-free. They have to be ADA compliant. They have to have bike racks. Those are all rules the TA establishes. But as we go through this study, as the TA leads the study, and CCAG and commute.org are two of the program partners that are going to be working with them on it, those are all the things we're going to have to look at. We understand that this is, it's not sustainable, and we would all love to get to electric vehicles to provide the services as well, but it may not be possible. What we know is, honestly, we got really lucky to be able to continue the program now and for at least the next couple of years while we figure it out. And there's incredible partnerships, people working to get this together, because I'm biased, but the value is really great to these employers, to these employees, to the residents, to the people who need access to it. And without Caltrain and the TA and Samtrans and commute.org and cities like the city of Brisbane stepping up, it would go away sooner than it might have to be. And this just gives us a chance to, I think, kind of regroup and try to figure out what it's going to be in the future and reimagine what it might be. And I'm not saying I think it's going to be exactly what it is now. In terms of the free, as I mentioned before, we're required to make it free, but it's not really free because these employers are contributing. It's the public-private partnership, at least the ones that we manage, right? It's a combination of these funds. Riders themselves don't pay, but their employers are paying.
But there's a lot of people who take the shuttle that are Brisbane residents who are taking it outside of town, or high schoolers who are taking it outside of town. And then that's us, right? Like, we're filling that in.
Correct.
I just asked because we had public comment. We had people email us and said, like, I would be willing to pay to ride the shuttle if that is what it would take for you to retain it. So I think it's important to just talk about that element. So the rest I have are more comments.
Okay.
So I'll.
Well, let me get through a couple more of these, and I think I might answer maybe some of them ahead of time. So we talked about why the vendor costs are increasing. And I talked before about losing the consortium members along the route. It's just been an attrition that's been challenging. The existing ones have stepped up as kind of as high as they can. They're already at the maximum contribution rates per their agreements. There has definitely been a reduction in the workforce in the Crocker Park area. Yeah. Is that going to come back? Is there going to be change? Is there going to be development in that area that's going to support additional contributions? That is to be determined. Residential ridership is good. It's important. This is one of those really nice routes. It's really kind of been the crown jewel of commute.org shuttles, is the BCP route and the BBC, because it does this beautiful bi-directional commute. It serves residents and businesses and residents and businesses all day long. That is not what most of our models look like, but it's really pretty neat that it can do that here. But the drop in ridership also affects our secondary grant funding, because commute.org also goes out and gets TFCA funding, which comes from the Air District. You guys may use some TFCA funding. We go get that, but it's ridership dependent. We only can qualify for that when ridership levels are at a certain level. We can only get our ridership there. But it's not all doom and gloom. There is reason for optimism. There are absolutely new employers coming to your area. We've been contacted by several of them who are interested in the program. You now have some mandated participation from your planning department. When they do certain developments, they're now being required to now engage with commute.org and participate in the shuttle program. That will be continuing, hopefully, as your properties in the Crocker Park area get redeveloped, and that will give you an opportunity to bring these people in. And there are cities in the county that we participate with who mandate every new development, every major tenant improvement, they're required to join the program.
Interesting.
In perpetuity. It's not like for a year. It's not like just as an in lieu kind of thing. They're required to stay with it. That's really important to the long-term support of this program. Transit ridership is growing. We know that. Things are coming back. You're reading about that all the time. Excuse me. You're reading about that all the time. Caltrain, BART, Ferry in particular, but they're all doing better. And the Caltrain service improvements, the electrification has made a big difference. On that graph that I was showing you before, Caltrain is showing a bigger spike than BART. Why? It's a great service. It's people are gravitating to it, and I think more of your residents and more of your employers and the employees that work for them are going to start to be using Caltrain in the future. Next slide, please. You have to wake Tom up. All right. So what was in your packet and what we kind of looked at as the various alternatives, given all that background that we were talking about, is we could retain the full service, which is the 2 routes, 3 vehicles. But if we do that, there is a shortfall of about $93,000 a year. Bears repeating, commute.org is here to put the partners together. Commute.org doesn't have funds itself. We just put the funds together from the various sources that we can come up with. The second option would be something that was creatively, came up with between the city, commute.org, and Caltrain, which is the idea of doing a consolidated BART and Caltrain service. We would lose service. We would go from 3 vehicles to 2, but we would create a route that would actually serve both BART and Caltrain. I have a picture of it to show you in a little bit. Caltrain's contribution would be used to support the consolidated route. Caltrain has stepped up and is going to provide 50% more funding in the next cycle than they did in the current cycle, and that funding would be used to support this, either support the consolidated service or option 3. In doing it this way, by eliminating one of the vehicles and doing the consolidation, we anticipate a shortfall of approximately $28,000 a year. The third option would be to eliminate the BART service, retain the Caltrain service. Caltrain and the city would be the ones providing the matching funds, and in that case, you'd be down to 1 vehicle, and the cost to the city would be approximately $13,000. And option 4 is to cancel all shuttle service. No service in Brisbane, no city funding required. You just tell me, and I'll tell the TA to tear up the funding agreements that they approved a little while ago, and we move on and go about our business. Those are the 4 options. There's nuances and there's different versions of those options, but those are really kind of, I think, at this point in time, looking at what it is that we have the option to do. Next slide, please. It was in your packet, but I just wanted to kind of show this. Maybe the public can see this a little bit better, but this is kind of the details of what a consolidated BART Caltrain service would look like. And I promised you I would show you the full Google map, and this is really what it is. This is kind of gives it a better context of the distance that we have to travel between Caltrain, the Balboa Park BART station, and the service area. The proposed combined service would have 6 morning trips and 7 afternoon and evening trips. There would be a total of 22 connections to BART, which is pickup and or drop-off, and the same number of pickups and drop-offs, 22, to serve the Caltrain station. So on each loop, we'd be picking up at the BART station, then picking up at the Caltrain station, then dropping off in the business area, and then going to the residential area and taking people back to Caltrain or back to BART, and then continuing the loop the next time. In the afternoon, it reverses. You'd be picking passengers up, presumably residents coming back, or late afternoon shift workers at the Balboa Park BART station. Come by, pick people up at the Caltrain station, drop them off in the residential area, and then go back through the commercial area within Crocker Park to pick up and drop off passengers and then return on the loop. So that's what this particular route would look like. That would be the 2-vehicle consolidated route. And again, we've been working closely with Caltrain on both the service design, the schedule, and again, with their contributions, this could be a possible option for you to consider.
How much longer does one loop take with this?
It's about 7 minutes longer. So if you guys are really familiar with that map, what you see, the red dot up at the top where we leave the BART station and we come down Geneva, Today, we turn right on Bayshore and come down. The new route turns left on Bayshore and goes up and then turns and goes past the Caltrain station, then uses tunnel to come down and then connects. So it's really that additional distance, at least on the BART's ride, it's that additional distance that would otherwise be on the Bayshore. The only, don't get mad at me, Randy, for saying it, but, tunnel's a little bumpy. So,
No.
it is what it is, but that is.
It's not our road, John. That's perfectly okay.
Okay, good. Thanks, Randy. I didn't want to get in trouble.
No offense taken.
It's a private road technically.
Love Randy. He's on our supervisory committee. So this is just another option. If you didn't want to stay with the current service and the 3-vehicle with the dedicated BART and the dedicated Caltrain, this alternative, again, which has been a lot of hard work to put it together and a lot of support from the various partners to make this happen, is a good option. Next slide. You thought I would never get here.
Can I ask a question, please?
We are here right now, so calling,
Okay.
perfect timing.
When I look at that map and I see Balboa BART Station,
Can we go
and
back?
I recall when Crocker Park employers were burgeoning and there were tons of people came from Balboa BART living in San Francisco to go to work in Crocker Park. Is San Francisco participating in funding this?
No. No, it's just the employers.
So have
And
we
Caltrain.
ever had a way to identify what employers, and this is probably asking a lot, what employers are actually relying on this shuttle coming from Balboa Park to bring their employees in that we're paying their transportation to go to work? And I'm all for paying Brisbane residents
Yeah.
to have a free transit to work. But I have a little bit of an issue with paying San Francisco residents to come to work without them helping defray the cost. So I'm about statistics. Do we have a way, if we have to go for 2 years with the TA and looking at options, to actually get a little bit more statistics on who is utilizing, how many people, certain times pickups, so we can understand where are these riders coming from?
Yeah. We survey, we have a lot of information about that, and I'm sure that'll be something that gets looked at. Again, the reason commute.org's involved is because we don't want those people driving to Brisbane.
And I agree.
Right, so we want to mitigate
Right.
that effort, that as much. But we also, pardon me, and maybe I'll defer to John, my other John, providing that service supports the business community in Brisbane, which brings sales tax revenue and property tax revenue and all sorts of stuff. So there's an economic development reason why you would want to do that
Yes.
as well.
It just, as Councilmember Davis has pointed out, I think very, very succinctly, there's a tipping point sometimes where all best intentions come down to, can we do something? And are we actually providing the best service for our residents? And if in fact there's a large employer in Brisbane who has a lot of people riding this and they don't want to help pay for it, maybe they should have their own shuttle to bring their employees.
And there are some that do.
Exactly, because we see that at Sierra Point. So it leads me to that, okay, if they have a lot of ridership and we identify that, maybe they need to fund their own shuttle into their business so that we are actually trying to provide service for our residents in the county.
So, yes, and I'm not here to argue that. I mean, that you can argue both sides of it, I think.
And
But-
I understand your point as
But
well.
for 30 years, the residents of Brisbane have gotten transportation funded by the employers in Crocker Park for 30 years.
Yes.
It's a lot,
It's a lot.
but we don't have all those employers anymore.
I hope you get them someday.
And
I
we
hope
have
you get 'em back.
people right now commuting, at best, the studies show employers are having a hard time getting people in an office 2 days a week. So,
Not in Crocker Park.
okay,
Crocker Park's a different workforce.
Yes, they have to be there in person.
That's a
It's not
different
office.
workforce.
that's true,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you show us the graphs and the drop in ridership post-COVID, and we show it coming up slightly, that's based upon a workforce mostly that has to be there in person.
Yes. And there has
regular
been, yeah,
basis.
and but there was a, post-COVID, there were a lot of these businesses closed or downsized. DHL, FedEx, there were a number of your employers up in that area that just really started reducing workforce. And that had an impact on ridership. And then they left. They stopped paying into the program. There's some new ones, and you guys know their names, I don't need to give them credit here, but there are new employers coming in, large named employers, that have a lot of workforce, that need a lot of people to come and go. And I think those are the opportunities we have to increase participation in the program and hopefully, at least in the short term, over the next couple of years, help defray those costs. Will it be enough for the long term? Don't know. But again, the TA and the sales tax pays 75% of it. So we're really right now looking for that 25% nut that we need to
And
crack.
could you tell me, are employers at this time in San Mateo County required to provide employees with transit vouchers?
No, they are required, if you have 50 or more employees, you are required to comply with the Bay Area Commuter Benefits Program. It's not a transit pass, but you are required to provide a number of different options. It doesn't have to be hard cost. You don't have to give people transit passes.
Okay, because it seems like that might be another avenue the TA could examine to promote the shuttle
Yeah.
subsidies and
Yeah, 'cause-
contributions.
And again, most of our riders are already on BART or Caltrain or the ferry, right? We're just that last mile. We're that first mile. We're trying to connect them to those larger transit systems. We aren't the transit system itself.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Kern?
Thank you so much. I am not a logistics expert, but I spent an hour this afternoon on Google Maps trying to map this out myself. It didn't go quite as well.
You're hired.
It was interesting. I was trying to come up with a route here where, we could do a time comparison. It was interesting to hear you say 7 minutes. So I don't think that that's terribly unreasonable. Can I just verify a couple numbers that I heard earlier in the presentation tonight? You were saying that the Caltrain shuttle was doing 1,250 riders per month
That was in April, yes.
in April? Okay. And then you said that the Crocker Park shuttle was doing 3,000 riders a month. Okay. Fair enough. Out of curiosity, how are you tabulating those rides?
The drivers have a driver count log. It's an electronic log that they use to log them on and off, each stop, each pickup, each drop-off. And those get tabulated by the vendor, submitted to Samtrans for review and approval, and then come to us on a monthly basis.
It's a manual process.
Yeah, yes, there's no automatic passenger, no. Part of the RFP and part of the reason the cost was so expensive, we had automatic passenger reader devices as part of the RFP, but they're really costly.
Got it.
APC.
The rest I have is for discussion.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCollum?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So, right now, they're looking at a 13,000 shortfall and an 80,000 shortfall on the two different routes. And in your figures here, Caltrain is going to reduce their funding to only 20%?
No, they are increasing their funding from the current year by 50%. But what they would be providing, that 50% increase would get them to 80% of the 20% required matching funds. So they were going to be at 80% of the matching funds that are required. So there's, back up,
Okay,
on BBC, so each of the routes requires 25% matching funds. Caltrain, in this new funding cycle, is going to provide 20% of that. There's still 5% that needs to be provided to keep the BBC running as an independent shuttle.
and that 5% is the
13,000.
13,000.
Exactly.
So if I were to try to do math backwards, which is not my good suit without a calculator, the BC route costs what per year? All in.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the
Backwards
numbers in
math.
front of me, but yeah, I was doing the backwards math. So if you take, somebody help me in the back, you take 52 and 13,
Carolina.
65, take 65, which is 25%. So 3 times that, so maybe 350,000?
So 350 all told,
If I'm doing
Maybe.
my math right.
ballpark maybe.
Yeah,
And of that, 75% is TA.
correct.
And then 20% is Caltrans.
Correct.
And 5% is Brisbane and the consortium.
No, on BBC route, it would just be Brisbane itself.
So the consortium doesn't pay into that because there's no
they-
businesses along that route.
No, they've just never paid into the Caltrain system. Their funding goes to the Brisbane Crocker Park
Okay.
shuttle.
So again, doing backwards math,
Please.
for the BART shuttle,
Okay.
its grand total is about,
700,000?
okay,
Because it operates 2 shuttles
Correct.
instead of 1.
Yes.
Yeah, so double.
okay.
That's the initial.
And of that, the consortium pay, or TA pays 75%,
Correct.
40% of the balance, or 40, it has to be 40 of the balance that the consortium pays. And is Brisbane part of that consortium?
So Brisbane is an employer in the consortium and currently pays $3,180 a year
Okay,
as an employer. You're one-
3,000.
Yeah, you're one of the 15 employers in the consortium. And so, yes, so of the 700,000, there's a 25% of that is what is needed to come up with the matching funds.
Okay, and how much does the consortium contribute to that?
It will be, it's in all my notes that I gave you guys. That should be all in there, but,
I couldn't find it
that's
in
okay,
anything.
that's okay,
Sorry
that's
there.
okay. I'm sorry for not being
It's fine.
prepared on my math numbers. They will provide approximately 60,000.
And what kind of outreach have you guys done as far as getting the new employers on board and doing updated contracts? Because you said that the current employers at the max of their contract, but the contract's going up for the services. Why are we, wouldn't we be reaching out to those people who are paying some? Wouldn't we be adjusting their contracts?
Yes, and every time we raise the prices, we lose
They drop,
more
yeah.
customers.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
It's voluntary.
if you look at the list of the employers who are still with us, and many of them have been in the program for 15, 20 years. Some of them, it's amazing how long they've been with the program. And we have increased them and increased them and increased them. And they're now kind of at the maximum of what the current allowed increase is for the current cycle. So that answers, they are at the top of the scale where they can be at this point in time. The new employers, every time we find out that there's a new employer in the area, we do outreach to them. We encourage them to participate. We send them all the material. If we can get a contact, we go out and do that. If we hear about it from your community development director that there's a new business in town that we should be talking to, or that they have a requirement to participate, we are in front of them. We get them new agreements. We give presentations to them. And those that are required to participate, it's just a process of getting them on board. Those that are, it's optional, it's a tough sell.
Yeah,
Okay,
especially right now.
well, I understand. I just was
But
trying
yes,
to get it.
we do that, but I don't have a sales force, if that's what your question is. I don't have a sales force that goes out there, knocks door to door. But we really rely on the city to give us that information and get us. One thing that's different about this consortium from most that we work with around the county is that we don't have any property managers or property owners that are in the partnerships. They're all individual employers for the most part. I don't know if any of them own their own property, but for the most part, they're all individual employers, and we don't have any property managers or owners of property that are contributing, whereas in most of our consortium agreement partnerships, we have large property owners that are the ones that are contributing, because then they can pass that on to their tenants.
So presumably you have a relationship with Prologis then, right?
No,
You don't?
No.
Because they own so much of the commercial property.
yeah, exactly.
So they refuse to meet with you? Is that,
I can't say that. I've not personally interacted with Prologis, but
just trying to figure out where the opportunities are.
Absolutely.
And the
That's what I'm-
roadblocks that we need to help facilitate.
yeah, that's why I'm here to talk.
Because
and
so
that's
much
what
of
you
our
guys were all here.
park is Prologis.
And
now-
CRB and,
Well, and now we have, potentially the
Potential.
sale of 11 properties, which is another area of opportunity.
And it would seem to me that if there's redevelopment work to be done on any of those 11 properties, if and when they do get sold, it seems like a mandated participation in the shuttle program might be a warranted option.
okay, so. Trying to get back on track where my
sorry.
money was headed down. So Brisbane does participate as an employer in the consortium, but then we're being asked to pick up the balance to guarantee we can have the shuttle service so that you guys don't go on a limb and have nobody to pay for it.
Correct.
Okay, that's my only
No,
questions
that's
for
good.
you.
They're really
Thank
good
you.
ones. Sorry, my math wasn't,
That's okay.
Yeah.
Sister Amars would not be
Fuzzy
happy.
math works for me.
All right, thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. Councilmember Davis, do you have any more questions?
No, lots of comments. I'll wait for the public. I know the public wants to talk, so I'll wait.
Okay, I just have just one question, John, and that's great that you've got some new businesses to be a part of the consortium, and you had said that some are required, and so if you could maybe share a little bit about that, or okay, so they're required because of city. So John, maybe this is a question for you. Sorry to interrupt. So some of our businesses are required to participate in the consortium with commute.org, and why is that for them and it's voluntary for others?
Well, actually, the requirement for mandatory in participation only stems from the recent TDM we adopted.
Got it.
So that's where that requirement comes from.
Okay.
Is there an employee threshold that, or,
There are tiers, so 20 or below is what we call small.
20 or below.
21 to 100 is medium, and anything over 100 is a large. We also have property manager levels, but again, we have nobody in that category here.
All right, any other questions for John before we open it up to the public? All right, John, don't go anywhere. Thanks. Okay, so I have some slips and. Okay. All right, so I'll take them in the order that they were received. Okay. So first person is Paul Buscal. Paul, would you like to come to the podium, please?
Paul Buscal, Brisbane resident. Thank you, council. So option number one is expensive, and I'm not sure if it could be done for 1 year and then reevaluated for the second year. And if that's not possible, option two is probably could be the best option regarding cost. I wouldn't feel as though the option of eliminating the BART service would serve the region. And with that said, Caltrain is probably 12 city blocks from the nearest BART station, which runs down Market Street. And I would think that most people that use BART are probably coming from outside of the San Francisco region. And so it's necessary, as well as students getting into the city. So I would hate to see us lose that BART connection. And, you know, the ridership on Caltrain is, would be used more if it was more frequent stops. The fact that they're not as frequent, I believe it's every half hour now, it was every hour, creates a situation. But possibly eliminating one vehicle would cut down on the cost. I know we just spent a lot of money putting in the ADA shuttle stops on Valley in the industrial park. So we committed to create opportunities for everyone to be able to utilize the shuttle. And I don't know if the amount of stops that we have in town creates a cost burden on the shuttle service. But, you know, having multiple stops on San Bernardino Avenue is convenient for people. However, it's only, you know, a 5-minute walk to come down to the base of town to be able to get to a shuttle stop. So if the frequency of the stops could be minimized, that could also possibly save money. So I've never used the shuttle personally, but I could tell you to try to get from Caltrain to BART, if we only had the Caltrain stop, is not an easy task by using Muni. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right. Up next is Nancy Loxamana.
Hello, Mayor, council members, Nancy Loxamana, Brisbane resident. I was one of those 1990 riders. 35 years on the shuttle, retired a couple years ago. Probably 10 to 15 of my closest friends were people that were on the shuttle, all with diverse views, diverse needs. We talked more about city events and city happenings. It was a huge, huge, wonderful situation. I was mentioning to the police chief that one of her current policemen, Robbie, was one of his very first jobs was here in Brisbane, coming from the East Bay as a city employee, was one of our shuttle riders. Look across the dais over there, we have members that, and former members that had children going to school into the city. There are so many benefits to this. Every single realtor in this city points it out in their information about house sales. I did put a letter in, but the most important thing is, of course, I understand this is a very big cost expense. We just have to find a way to keep it. I really like Paul's idea. We talked about it prior. If we could try it for 1 year, get more information, try to get more people in this consortium, I think that's the big key. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Clark. Thank you for coming to City Hall.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clark Conway, Brisbane resident. This one's like full circle.
I
So,
remember.
Frank, congratulations on your election 6 months ago. I don't come to these meetings anymore. So anyway, I give you the history of the world, part one on shuttles, at least from my perspective, is, we started out with MITSMA, which is Multi-Transportation System Management Systems or something like that. And then the South Bay had ITSMA. And MITSMA, which was, Brisbane was included, the North County cities, was very effective. And ITSMA was struggling. So around 2000, combined the two groups, and it became the Peninsula Congestion Relief Alliance. That's what they called an alliance, and then, later it became commute.org.
Yes.
And I had the pleasure of being the first chairman of the board of the Peninsula Congestion Relief Alliance. And during that time, we have the supervisory committee, from each city has, a representative, and then also part of the supervisory committee. And our supervisory committee member was Fred Smith at the time, and Fred and I were talking because Brisbane citizens actually were not officially allowed. There was no shuttle service in Brisbane. And we can kind of think Samtrans to running an ineffective bus service to where it's going to die, and it did. We said maybe we could do something where we could utilize the shuttles for Brisbane, and that's what came up with what kind of currently in place. And as John alluded to, is very effective and really looked at the shuttle service. Now, Brisbane, as we all know, is a very unique situation in that we don't walk to BART. We can't even walk to Caltrains unless you want to take your life in your hands walking down Tunnel Road or something like that. Not a good idea, right? So these shuttles are really critical, especially to our most vulnerable citizens. I'm talking about seniors and students. We got students that go to San Francisco State, students that go to City College who take it, some students go to some of the parochial schools in San Francisco, such as St. Ignatius or Sacred Heart or Reardon. They use the shuttle. And, officially that wasn't allowed, but was never denied. So I think that it's really a community amenity, just like the swimming pool and stuff like that. And in the current situation, it's not sustainable, but it's important to find the funding. I mean, the Trump administration just canceled $4 billion to high-speed rail, which actually probably the only thing I agree with on them, because how I always felt about high-speed rail being a real pork belly, just an abomination of transportation. But anyway, aside from that, I think that it's important that we keep the shuttle service, and then John and his staff, and maybe whoever our representative is, work with CCAG, with Sandy Wong, her staff, look for funding, work with Congressman Mullen and his staff, see what federal funds we can get for this, to fill it in. What I would suggest is to keep it status quo if you can afford it. Okay, and I don't know what the budget is, I didn't look at any of that, but if you can afford it, go with the 2-year funding plan. And of course, anything that's joined afterwards, can get reimbursed to the city of Brisbane, and you find other funding, that get reimbursed. But, and the reason I say that is because you start changing things, you start, I think, losing ridership. And Samtrans is really a classic example of that. Because in the 70s, Brisbane had a very effective local bus service. It would actually take people to Tanforan and stuff like that. And it was really ideal. And along came this big new thing called Samtrans, said, let us take over the bus service. Well, well, we're afraid that, you might make it ineffective, it's kind of local but, capitulated and allowed that to happen. And then, they ran crap routes. Ridership fell, budget time comes, let's take a look at, our route. Oh, we don't have good ridership here. Oh, let's cancel that. That canceled the bus service in Brisbane. So, I don't want to see that happen with the shuttles. So it's best to try and keep that in place. So that way, you won't lose that ridership. And like John, I think, was alluding to earlier that, it's gaining with Caltrain. And it is important for BART. It is important for those City College, those parochial school students, and San Francisco State students to have that. So,
Thank you.
my 2 cents, if I was, and you have the money, I would stay with the status quo right now, and then work the phone lines, and that's what we do. I mean, this is a very effective service, and it'd be very sad for it to go away. And I know that seniors can call a shuttle on call when the shuttles aren't running and take them to Tanforan, and that was really an important thing. And I know probably it dropped off in the pandemic. I don't know, but what the results are. But anyway, thank you for allowing me to speak on this item.
Yeah,
This
thank you so much.
kind of
Clark.
near and dear.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Up next is Chris Lara. Did I get that correct?
Laura, that's
Lara,
correct.
okay. Okay, and then you're going to be joined with John Patan?
Yes, John.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Honorable Mayor, City Council people, staff of Brisbane. We are one of the new employers happily moving into Brisbane. We represent a company called Mitra. We're a small robotic startup. And I'm the director of operations for Mitra, and I was responsible for finding our new headquarters. And I can say without a doubt that the Commute.org shuttle is one of the reasons why we even considered the location. It's important to us for our employees to get to work safely. And we have talent, as I'm sure you all know. Trying to find talent in the Bay Area is very competitive, especially as a small startup. And something that's very important to this talent is making sure that they can get to work on time, get to work safely. And we are also part of the consortium members. We actually had employees asking if we can increase service because, again, it's very important to get to work. And we have employees that are part of the Brisbane. That's why I asked John also to join, as he's a happy resident of City of Brisbane. We're moving, we signed our lease in January, and we're moving next week. Actually, we're in the process of it. Thank you to the planning department also for just working with us really well. We've had such a good experience working with Brisbane so far, and hope to keep this shuttle and hope to have a long future with this.
Thank you so much, John. Chris, you want to say anything?
Other way around.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you, Chris.
All good.
Sorry,
We're both
John.
wearing black, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, adding the John to the mix, so I think we have quorum now. John Payton, longtime Brisbane resident, longtime listener, first time caller here. But you had a lot of people today asking us a question about making sure that this Brisbane shuttle remains intact. That was just for the Caltrain station. We haven't even gotten the numbers yet for the Brisbane to Balboa Park BART station. But we know that at least for the company that we have now, at least 12 people have asked about the daily ridership from the Caltrain station, from our office every single day. And as two people here representing people who do have to go into the office every single day, given the nature of our work, this is not insignificant. We want to make sure we're pumping your numbers up. So this is a big win-win for all of us, and I hope that you fund this initiative.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, okay, great. Okay, well, Eldon, why don't you come on up? Thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. I just want to, I'm Elna Miller, Brisbane resident, and born and raised here, actually. I want to thank Councilmember Davis for inspiring me to come here tonight. I appreciate the write-up that you did. I appreciate you taking the time to explain all the details, so I really I'm glad you did that, so thanks. I've done that a couple times, so keep it up. So I'm just going to talk about my personal experience, my family's experience with the shuttle, and just give my support for trying to maintain it as much as possible. I have used the BART shuttle in the past. I found it very useful, worked really well when I worked in San Francisco. I don't anymore, but when I did, it worked. The timing was good. And, you know, when you're looking at like deterring driving as opposed to people who don't have a choice, it would take me longer to drive to South San Francisco BART and park there than it would to take the Brisbane shuttle. So it was actually time efficient as well as, you know, more greener and, you know, not using the car and the parking costs and all that. Plus going south to then go north was inefficient. So I really do think the BART shuttle needs to stay because that one is really efficient for getting into the city. And also there's a lot of high school students who take it, I think, and I have high school students now too. And we tried to use the Caltrain shuttle, and actually we used the reverse commute, which was going down south. And we found that even with the additional trains at the Bayshore station, we just weren't able to use the shuttle because of the long time between the train and the shuttle. So for example, we looked at every possible, because she was taking the Millbrae shuttle on the other end, and also commute.org shuttle. And we tried every possible permutation, and there really wasn't anywhere she didn't have to wait like 45 to 50 minutes for the shuttle at the Bayshore station, which is a 5-minute drive. So
Where
it
were
really,
you trying to get to?
from the Bayshore station to Brisbane, like in the afternoon, like she would arrive at 4:40. And the shuttle, the previous shuttle was like 4:35. So the next one was like 5:25, and she had to, you know, wait till then. And I actually called and spoke at length to the customer service department at commute.org, and I asked them, you know, why the shuttle wasn't more synchronized with the train schedule. I mean, I understood that maybe it was more for the commuters going to San Francisco and back. And the one thing they said to me kind of stuck in my mind, which I thought was a little odd, was that the schedule was more prioritized around the employer commuting. So the people who were going to Crocker, I guess back and forth to Crocker, that they had to prioritize the timing for those folks over the commuters from Brisbane to the station. So I thought that was interesting, especially since it doesn't sound like they are funding the Caltrain shuttle as much as the BART, right? They're more funding the BART one. So I thought that was an interesting point. Maybe Mr. Ford can speak to that. And then when I was looking at the combined option, it sounds like that might actually serve the Caltrain station better.
I got a question there. So
it might be that might be two vehicles going to Caltrain instead of one, if it's going there and then going to, so that might actually help address that problem as long as it doesn't impact the BART riders too much. So anyway, that's my feedback. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your story, Elna. Appreciate it. All right, so I know that we have some folks online. So Ingrid?
We have one under Google Pixel 7 Pro guest.
Okay, well, person that's under the Google 7 Pro Pixel guest. Did I get that right? You are up.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Okay. This is Elena. I'm a Brisbane resident, and sorry for the weird naming. And thank you for letting me participate, even though I couldn't be there in person. I think a lot of good ideas have been thrown around. Overall, I just want to say, like, it seems like it's just a tricky, the first mile and last mile is a tricky service to provide. And something that if we could keep going would probably be pretty helpful. I both live in Brisbane and now I'm going to be working in Brisbane. So my commute will be short, but thinking about, for example, riding from one of these stations, which could be an alternative, it's actually not trivial to find a safe route. So having the option that's doesn't require a car, and still allows you to get to work is super, super valuable. And I think it's not just last mile of people coming from SF, it's also like first mile for people leaving Brisbane and going to work. So I just think Brisbane community as a whole is benefiting a lot, and it's not just the people from the outside. So that was my 2 cents on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Elena. All right. Okay. Anyone else in the audience who hasn't spoken yet, who might want to speak on this item? All right. So,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just a second. I'm sorry,
okay.
do you want to speak to this item? Okay, thank you.
All righty. So, John, if you wouldn't mind coming back to the podium and, if there were some things that you might want to just clarify a little bit.
Thank you, Mayor. No, there were great comments, great questions, observations. Appreciate seeing some old faces as well. And to our friends from Mitra, thanks for coming in today. We've been in, that's one of the companies that's been new. They're in South City. They're coming up here. Our team has been working with them. And one of the concerns they've shared is like a lot of their people are going to be Caltrain riders. And so how do we better align? One thing I would like to point out, and maybe to, I'm sorry, I forgot the woman's name, whose daughter was taking the Caltrain, probably going down to Mercy Burlingame and probably taking our shuttle from there.
That's nodding, yes.
Yeah, that's, I know exactly. And I was probably the one you were talking to when you called customer service that night. There are more people, well, let me back up. Caltrain's new schedule with the electrification is really good at Bayshore because the northbound and southbounds now are within a minute of each other. So one comes in at 34 and one comes in at 35. And at the other end of the hour, it's at 25 at 55 and 54, something like that. So they're really nicely aligned. So it's easier now to meet up in northbound and southbound where it was in the past where they were cockamamie, and so you always had to favor either a northbound or a southbound with one vehicle. You couldn't serve them both. Otherwise, people are sitting there waiting for 20 minutes, right? So that has really improved the Caltrain electrification. The new schedule makes the Bayshore station a lot better than it used to be as an alternative for people riding, which is, I think, part of the reason why we're seeing the ridership increase. The downside is it only gets trains every half hour, and they're not expresses, they're locals, which, again, my friends at Mitra have said, hey, look, there's other service at other places where if you're coming longer distances, you want to take those express trains. Those don't come to the station, but it's so much better than it was before. And I think the new service, either way we look at it, we will have a better chance of aligning better to those schedules going forward.
All right,
So
John.
I can add that to the conversation.
And then if the council chose option 2, so that would increase the amount of times a shuttle bus would go to the Caltrain station compared to what exists today, does that have the potential to lower wait times?
It does. So, again, working with the Caltrain planners as well as the commute.org team, we now have it synchronized so that each trip that it makes to the station, you would be dropping off 10 minutes in advance of the train's departing and picking up 10 minutes after the train's arrival. And because of the crossover at that station, it takes a bit of time to get out to the station. So that's what the new schedule looks like. It aligns better than it has been in the past. And you can do that because of the 2 shuttles, the 2 vehicles serving it. So Caltrain service gets better. BART service gets a little lag. You're just on the shuttle a little bit longer.
Okay, I think Councilmember Kern, you were talking about 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Yeah.
That's his Google mapping, not mine.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
So we're talking maybe about option 2 here, and it's one of the things we're considering. Would we be replacing or changing up any of the shuttles, or would it be one of the existing shuttles in terms of capacity?
It's a great question, and we're going to need to figure that out. Right now, the Crocker BART shuttles are our largest shuttles, and they're probably oversized for what we do. Back in the day, we needed them. They were 40-passenger vehicles, and we needed those seats because we didn't want standees. The next size down is a 28-passenger. That probably works today. If we continue to grow, if we do this consolidated route, we're just going to have to test it out. But we'd like to serve it with the medium, which is the 28-passenger. Currently, the Caltrain service is a 20-passenger. So the 28 is a nice combination. There just might be a couple of trips, if we go from 3 vehicles to 2, there might be a couple of trips that get a little tight with 28. But that's something our team will have to just figure out as we go along.
Okay.
And the 40-passenger vehicles will be there if we needed them in the future.
Great.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You know, I do have just one other question, John. So in regards to the Caltrain contribution, so the 80% of funding for the BBC route equates to about $52,000. Okay, and Caltrain's commitment is for 2 years?
Yes, to their conversations with the city of Brisbane are that they will commit to 2 years of funding at that level. And they've agreed to either, again, option 1, which is the retaining the service, or option 2, which is the combined service.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I want to jump in on that too. I wanted to recognize, Caltrain is going through budget issues like every other entity in the state. And I want to thank them for engaging with us, although it is a struggle that they're reducing their amount. I've recognized that. And there were iterations where their participation may not have been, would have been much less. So the fact that they were willing to have communications with me about this issue, really do appreciate that they're trying. Just want to put that on the record.
Thank you, City Manager Dennis. All right, so thank you, John. Don't go away. We might, have follow-up questions, but I think now we're ready for council discussion. So, Councilmember Davis, you want to start us off?
Well, first, I want to thank everyone who came this evening and all the people who wrote to us. We received a significant amount of emails in a very short period of time. And I know that it takes time to put that together. So I want to thank you for engaging with the council in that way. I've never ridden the shuttle, but I went to St. Ignatius, and there were some of my classmates who took the shuttle to get to BART, and they didn't hop on BART. From BART, there's so many bus routes that go there. So I think that's one element that's missing here, is not just, are we getting to Caltrain, are we getting to BART, but that to be close to BART, now you have this intersection of so many bus routes. So if you can get to Balboa BART station, you can hop on a bus and get so many other places. So it actually is, it really provides for much more connectedness than just what's on the route. So I think that's something that's important to consider, and so many of our high school students rely on that, who go to school in San Francisco. And I think the way out of this in the long term, I think, comes down to a city mandate on our part, and I think that's something that we should explore. I know what it's like to be in the business of memberships, so to speak, and you lose a couple of big businesses, and that affects you that has a big ripple effect, and it's very hard to make new relationships and to convince new people to join than it is to just maintain existing relationships. So if you have enough employers leave, it's a big hole to fill, and you're always going to be in that game if it's a voluntary thing. And so many of those employers that you mentioned, they're not here anymore. Anyhow, so I think that's something long-term that the council really should look at, because then we're going to ensure that funding is there to the greatest extent that it can be. My perspective, and I was really kind of leaning toward the consolidated service, but after this conversation, I think that it's important for us to retain at the existing level. And I know that it is a significant cost, but I think that the benefits are huge. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not that it's a number that we cannot digest, in my personal opinion. And I do feel like once you start changing up routes, you really can impact ridership, as Clark mentioned. I don't know if anyone's like me, but I really plan my commute down to the few minutes, especially if you're trying to connect. Like if you're taking the shuttle to Balboa BART and then from there you need to hop on a bus going somewhere else, 7 minutes can really make or break whether that's a viable option for you now. And so, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, thank you for that. Councilmember Kern?
Thank you. A couple thoughts on this topic. So maybe we are, maybe we're not, as a household, heavy users of the shuttle. So we calculated that my partner, Alan, took the shuttle. His office was in Palo Alto 192 times in a calendar year.
Oh, geez.
And so we're having some struggles because we live off one of the Caltrain shuttle routes. And if I do some basic math here, and this is really rough basic math, this is elementary math here. At 1,250 riders a month, that's 312, 313 if you round up riders a week. You knock that down 5 days a week, that's 63 riders a day. You knock that down by 2, so that's, you take it once in the morning, you take it once at night, it's a commute. You're down to 31, and that means that for every single loop that shuttle is doing, you've got 10.4 people on the shuttle. So the shuttle is 50% full according to the capacity numbers we were given tonight. 50% full. It's not. If you look at the I'm specifically speaking to the BBC route, those numbers are not there. That being said, and the reason I'm struggling so much is because the BCP route is very heavily used. I have seen it where it's only standing room only. I walk my dog a lot. Everybody knows that in this town. I'm around a lot. I see people getting off that shuttle in Crocker Park in mass and walking to work from the shuttle stop. So at this point in time, I'm sort of leaning towards the consolidated service because I feel like it provides a little bit of better service to Caltrain, and it still serves everybody who's taking the existing DCP route. We have found as a household that for $4.50 a day, we can take the 292 down to South San Francisco. And you're like, well, hey, Frank, that's $4.50 a day, but you get access to express trains in either direction that get you where you need to be very, very quickly. So that's a solution that we would do too, as we would take the 292 from the front of town. So those are my general thoughts.
Yeah, no, those are great. Thank you. Councilmember O'Connell.
So I think transportation is really important for the community, and being able to access the limited transportation that we have is also very important. I see a lot of the shuttles going by empty, as Councilmember Kern suggested, that, they're not completely overly utilized. And with the budget constraints that we are going through and the deficit spending that is still on our agenda, and we've spent a lot of time on this issue, that we're going to have some really important and difficult decisions to make, maybe that aren't going to affect us as much this year because so many things have already been put in play that are going to have to be spent anyway. That any decisions we make on the budget this year are really not going to affect our deficit to a great degree. But I think that we need to preserve the service, and I would certainly be more in favor of the consolidated service, where we're not putting ourselves as much on the line to subsidize the transportation, and really figure out a way to get more participation with the businesses in town. And we're contributing as a consortium member, and we're trying to fill the gap hole as a city of Brisbane who gets the benefit of the employers and the citizens who get to ride the shuttle. As far as citizens here in town residents using the shuttle to go other places, when it comes to seniors, there are two other options for senior transportation. We've got the Got Wheels program and then the senior shuttle. So there are some other, if it is an issue that there's reduced service by having just the two shuttle services, the two buses. I think that some of our seniors can utilize the other available transit options. So that would be where I would head on this to keep the costs down and see how it can shake out for the future.
Okay, all right. Councilmember Mackin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start by saying there were many years I worked and I did not drive and I owned a car. I was a big believer. I hated parking. I hated getting stuck in traffic. It was so easy to be half asleep in the morning. The doors would open on BART and then I would emerge. And one time I went past my transit stop because I was enjoying the ride so much that, oh, gee, I've missed it. I'm in Daly City. But that being said, I really understand the importance of having shuttles and having public transit, and that's the direction we should be going. And if we're going to build housing without parking, we need this. That being said, there's something else that has to be considered. The cost of everything is going up. It's a given. And we've got a lot of financial uncertainty. I don't need to explain that to you. So as a city, you can see how we're struggling because we're not a company and our revenues, guess what, are not going up. And that's a problem. So how do we maintain the level of service for as much as possible in this city? We don't want to eliminate anything. So I think a viable solution for now to allow the TA time to work this out. There's a transit tax being considered for BART and Caltrain that's not been settled, and that may affect their timing and their routes and their schedules as well. I think a viable solution is to consider the consolidated service because we maintain the service knowing that perhaps in 2 years, we may have more riders, we can expand it, we need to adjust routes. We'll know more about it, but we don't eliminate it. We keep it going because we need to. So that's my thoughts.
All right, no, thank you for everybody's, thoughts and contributions. I just want to start first by just putting out a thank you to John and his efforts at commute.org and to Caltrain and to Jeremy for his efforts too. These guys were going back and forth trying to figure this thing out, and it was complicated. And what they've put together is what partnership's all about. Obviously, the shuttle impacts Brisbane and it's a benefit to Brisbane, but it also connects us with the wider region. And that's what this is about. And I just also wanted to thank the citizens. I'm glad that you mentioned our citizens, Madison, because we received so many letters. It was fantastic, and hearing those stories, and then folks coming tonight and providing those stories. Clark, we need to have you come to more meetings. We need that institutional wisdom that you always provide. We miss it. And so for me, I was, looking at options 1 and 2. In the end, I feel that option 2 is the better option just because of being able to improve the opportunities to go to Caltrain. I think the costs are more in line with where our budget is. I really appreciate Caltrain's contribution for the $52,000 for 2 years. That's huge, and I think for us to contribute the 28,000 for the 2 years is a good step forward. As you were saying, Madison, how do we figure this thing out, right? And so John has said we got a couple years to do it, and I would love to set up a meeting with Commute.org and staff in the chamber. I'm our representative, and just really take a deeper dive and look at how can we grow the consortium. All right, are there policies that we can put in place that require more businesses to contribute? We need to be looking at how do we make this shuttle service that we provide for our residents and for the workers that come to Brisbane more sustainable. So thank you, everyone. So with that, it looks like option 2 seems to be the one that the majority of the council wants to go with. And if that is the case, I will entertain a motion to move forward with option 2 for this next 2-year shuttle cycle. So anyone want to make that motion?
Do we need to make a motion, or are we just giving direction to staff?
You're just giving direction. You do not need a motion.
We don't need a motion. Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Perfect then. All right. So
Can I suggest a 5 to 10 minute break?
absolutely. Okay. So staff, you have.
Yes,
Direction.
and through the chair, we'll examine all the funding sources that we have, including non-general fund sources. There may be some options related to some other sources as well. So this may not be just a general fund impact. We'll do that work in the next few weeks and bring it back.
Great. Thank you. All right. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you, John, for coming and presenting and answering our questions. Everyone, if we can get back to our meeting. So Ingrid, tell me what we need to do next. We have a countdown.
We're live.
Okay, we're live. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I know that was a long 5 minutes, but I appreciate your patience. Okay, so we're going to go to old business, which is item I. Consider adopting a resolution to amend the master pay schedule. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Lentz and members of the council. Per CalPERS requirement, staff would like to read into the record the following executive management bargaining group's new hourly rate after receiving a 4.5% increase effective the first payroll period in July 2025. Confidential management, currently filled position at top step per hour, our assistant city manager at $145.04. Finance director at $120.69, and human resources director at $118.45. Executive management, currently filled position at top step per hour, our assistant to the city manager at $96.65. City clerk at $78.20. Community development director at $121.97. Parks and recreation director at $116.29. And public works director / city engineer at $142.79. Lastly, police chief at top step is $142.31 per hour. This concludes my staff report, and I am happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Abby. So any council members have questions for Abby? No. Okay. Any members of the public like to chime in on this item? Don't see anybody. I don't see any hands raised. So council discussion. Or I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution to amend the master pay schedule.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, can you please read, before the motion, you have to read the part of the script regarding
Oh, we do.
city manager.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so as is noted in the agenda report, for item I, state law and regulation, as well as CalPERS guidance, require that the city post a master pay schedule that accurately reflects all of the city's pay schedules in a single document. Specifically, the council must amend the schedule to reflect the city manager's new compensation as hourly $158.25, annually $329,160. A revised master pay schedule that reflects these changes is included in the agenda packet under item I as Appendix A. Okay, so that covers the requirement. Okay, so we have a motion, but you have a comment, Councilmember?
No,
Bracken?
I was going to second and commend Abby for a really comprehensive staff report. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Now moving on to item H, public hearing. Consider adoption of resolutions to approve the budget for fiscal years 2026 and 2027. Staff report, please.
I have a slide presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Lentz and council members, for allowing us, the staff, the opportunity to dedicate tonight for our budget workshop, review the proposed budget for fiscal years 2025-26 and 2026-27. I really would like to thank the staff who set aside time to prepare their proposals, attend budget meetings, review resulting documents, and especially for their presence here tonight. Next slide. So first of all, just always to remind the public and the viewers of why we prepare the budget and to review the process. So the budget, it defines the policy set out by City Council It serves as an operating guide for management staff to monitor financial resources and compliance with state law and accounting standards. It's the city's financial plan for the fiscal year, and it's a communication tool to the community on what the city has determined to be its priorities, educating on how the city operates and methods used for financing operations. So the process is we have in the even years an operating budget. It's a 2-year budget, which is that guiding document. Staff develops the programs to meet the goals that are set by City Council, and then the staff also develops the proposed operating budgets. In aggregate, those proposals are then presented and reviewed by the city manager, who reviews the budgets of all the departments as a whole to ensure that the resources allocated across the organization most effectively in relationship to the priorities of the city. So each department's submission has been reviewed with the city manager before being presented tonight. Since COVID, staff was presenting 1-year budget proposals, but now with the new city manager, the city has returned to a 2-year cycle. In the off years, the capital budget is reviewed. So the capital budget is not included in tonight's presentation. And just to remind the viewers that after tonight, the council reviews and adopts the operating budget in order for the city staff to implement into its daily operations. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps after tonight? So later this year, council is scheduled to discuss the priorities that it has set. There were 3: fiscal health of the city, facilities, and volunteers. So the City Council reviews the budget officially during the mid-year fiscal year review and then between budget years when there is a 2-year cycle. Council reviews the progress and determines if adjustments are necessary. So the city is scheduled to review the budget again twice at least during the fiscal year and then between the budget years, and those can lead to budget adjustments. So most frequent financial reporting will also be provided by staff to help the council to assess the fiscal health of the city. Next slide. So we're going to start with just a high overview of the budget for year 1. Presented here are the revenues and expenses budgeted compared to projected for 24 and 25. And when you see the first column under the blue header, it's 24-25. Those were the budgeted figures. The middle column is 24-25 projected using April results. And then the last column is now the first year budget proposed tonight. We'll address revenues more closely later, but what we want to highlight here, total revenue that we are budgeting tonight compared to the projected of 25 is $31,277,277. That's down from the revenue projected for the current year. And we'll talk a little bit more later. And then as far as expenses, those are going up from 30.6 million to 32.3 million on that last column. But we want to just highlight again that in preparing these budgets, we're not only comparing budget to budget year, we really want to look at actuals because that's to see what the city is truly experiencing, because when you prepare a budget, the timeline, it's very far in advance. And whereas a projection now, we're looking at recent figures, we're looking at recent activity, we're looking at what's really going on economically within the city and economically around the country and how that impacts us. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important to have those actual results and projections inform how we're budgeting for the next several years. Next slide, please. So this again is a history of how we've been budgeting over several years. The bars that we have shown are the actuals. So the solid bars are revenue, whereas the
dotted bars are the expenditures. So that's actual. If you see the solid lines versus the dotted lines, revenue has been budgeted very conservatively compared to expenses. So for when you compare the budgeted figures to what actually resulted, there was really only 1 year where in 2022 where the expenditures turned out to be more than the revenue. In the other years, we had one-time events, something happened, or where the programs weren't fully able to be executed, so costs went down. One way or another, the revenues exceeded the expenditures for those past years. So going forward for the next two, we feel that we are able to project the revenues a little bit higher. We're still looking at a budget deficit for both years, but we feel that showing the growth in the revenue is still a very valid assumptions to make based off of the underlying revenue streams that we have reflecting those projected numbers. So again, we'd like to reiterate that we're focusing on actuals in this budget in addition to the previous budget years in order to inform how we're projecting our budgets for this year.
Carolina, are you going to go on to the next slide, or are you going to stick with this one?
I was going to go on, but...
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to highlight these last 3 years. You've been very close to putting out a projection and what the actuals were, and you look at, on the other side, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. I mean, granted, 2020 is, you got to throw that out the window because of the pandemic, but those first 3 years, there's a much bigger gap, and here you've been able to get it very, very close. That's impressive. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure. You're talking about
what the
Mr. Mayor,
projections
with
were,
the
and then what
black
the
and the
actuals.
dotted lines?
No, just the blue and the
Those weren't actuals, and those are revenues and expenditures.
Oh, I mean, okay, that's what I mean. The revenues and expenditures were very, very close to what
to as budgeted.
what they were budgeted and what the actuals were.
The solid bars you're saying were close to what is showing on the lines.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying. That's what I mean. Mm-hmm.
For the more recent years.
Yes.
And I can't take credit for when one-time events happen.
I know.
Don't happen.
You can take credit for all the good ones, and you don't take credit for all the bad ones. That's what I think.
Yeah.
The main point we want to make is with the revenues exceeding the expenses for the previous years, we've been able to maintain a healthy fund balance, growing, even though we've budgeted for deficits, but we've been able to grow the fund balance as those revenues have exceeded the expenditures, coming in with actual surpluses. So, next slide. So we do have a strategy to decrease deficits, and we're in the process of exploring other revenue streams because in order to attack a deficit, one way is to increase your revenues. So we are actually in the middle of a master fee study. We've already received approval to proceed with a business license tax study, so that's going to be starting shortly. And then on the flip side, cost containment on your expenses. You can tackle your expenses, and so staff continues to examine costs and find ways to improve efficiencies using tools like Laserfish, artificial intelligence or AI, using online resources that where customers can do on their own time and limit when they're coming into the office. So those are a variety of ways that we can keep costs down that we're exploring. And also, the staff is always looking for creative ways on how to perform their programs. And so they'll be offering more information tonight. So other areas that we're looking at, we're considering other revenue streams, such as in our investment portfolio. How can we make it work better for us? Seeking more grants so that it's less cost to the city. And then the middle section where you see that check mark, as you roll over a surplus, that adds to your fund balance growth. Next slide, please. So the major revenue sources that we're presenting, we just want to just show what we're budgeting as compared to the 25 projections, again, through April activity. So property taxes, we're looking at that it should meet about 7.6 million. That's a negative 4% change. And although our secured taxes, we're looking at growth, it's offset by a conservative view of VLF, ERAF, those types of state type of property tax impact. Sales taxes at 9.2 million, that's actually a growth of 6% compared to what we're expecting from this year. And so just want to make sure that we understand that we're seeing a sales tax growth because of some distribution and organizations coming into town are expanding their business, and also that impacts the county pool contributions that are growing. Sales use tax, however, it's below the expectation that we had when we implemented and voted it in 2023. But combined, we're still looking at a growth in sales tax. TOT is relatively flat. We had budgeted last year 1.9. We're looking at a 2 million, but we had some additional payments this year, so it's actually a reduction from the current projection. For business license tax, we're expecting up to 5.5 million, which is a 3% growth. That does not include businesses that contribute over 10 million because there's a portion that's transferred over to capital assets. So that's strictly what's going to be left in the general fund. And then finally, fees and charges. We're proposing a budget of 2 million. This does not include the potential from the master fee study. So there's opportunity there, but we are not done with that study. We don't want to include it at all until you've had a chance to review what it is. We don't budget for other income, such as reimbursement, so I just wanted to make sure that those are unknown, so we don't know when we'll get those, such as grant reimbursements or strike team reimbursements. Those are not projected or budgeted. Next slide. So that was the revenue side. Now we're looking at the expenditures. So for the 2 years, this is general fund only. First year, 32.3 million, and then the second year, 33.3 million. So the majority of about a little over 70% has to do with salary and benefits. So just want to make sure that we understand that for 26, the increase to salary and benefits was budgeted at 4.5%. The contract's going to expire at the end of 26 or June 30, 26. So we don't have an estimate. So what we did is we have a placeholder for 27 of a COLA of 3%, which is a standard amount. And then those other areas that increase or the variance between 26, 27 is the 3% COLA, and then any programs that were identified by the departments of either new or being reduced from the previous year. Okay, next slide. So part of the staffing that we're requesting for year one has to do with an initiative to support our succession planning. So we only have 3 new positions. 2 of them are in the general fund and 1 is in the utilities fund, but we feel these are necessary in order to keep, again, for continuity within some of these departments. So the first one is in PD records or police records department that they're looking for an office specialist. And then the community development is also looking for an office specialist. From the utilities fund, they are looking to hire an engineering technician to help support their programs. Okay, next slide. Lots of considerations for not just for the next year, but for beyond. That we're looking at not just for our short-term 2-year budget, but also for our long-term strategic planning. One of them is how to incorporate the council priority-related projects. How do we incorporate those into our 2-year budget and then in future years? Again, the employee contracts are scheduled to expire in 2026, so that is definitely a consideration we have to keep on what the next MOUs are going to do to our costs. The executive position level, we are expecting several retirements within the next 3 years. So how is that going to impact each of the departments impacted as well as the city as a whole? CalPERS discount rate has not changed, but it's at 6.8. And if the market is less than 6.8, we have to make up the difference in order to fund all of those pensions. Okay. If the market exceeds a 6.8, then that's a benefit to us. Healthcare liability, workers' comp are every year. You don't know what the increases are going to be. Workers' comp usually happens, it's usually a year staggered or a year later of the actual cost, actual occurrence that you'll see the cost on applied to our account. Again, we have 2 studies going on, the master fee study and the business license study, in order to look for increased revenues. And then we have to review our CIP plan. One of the goals was to review long-term facility use and maintenance evaluations. So how are those costs going to impact and inform our budgets? And finally, there's a lot of uncertainty on how the federal government is going to impact, not just through funding itself through government, but also how that's going to impact pricing for the materials that we need when we do construction or heavy projects. All of those areas can be impacted by the U.S. fiscal policies. Next slide. So with those revenues and expenses combined, the net difference is either a use of funds or a surplus. In our case, it's a use of funds. When in the staff report, we also showed what the beginning and ending balances were for the fund balance, but the policy that the city has put in place regarding the fund balance in order to maintain a healthy financial position, we've set aside funds to consider for, if needed, for a deep recession, official recession, I guess you can call it, unanticipated events, if we were to have some kind of emergency, being in the area that we're in, that's very possible. And then the last component is an annual fluctuation. So it's 5% of revenue, 5% of the expense for that budget is also layered into what we would need to set aside in order to maintain it in the reserve. So for 26, we have 9.2 million that's required. On top of that, you would have additional fund balance restrictions, such as incoming loans, that if they were to default, we have to have money set aside to cover. And other restrictions are like contracts, long-term contracts, anything covering multiple years. So those are also restrictions on our fund balance. And then anything left over is what we call available. Okay. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see the only change is really that third line of the annual fluctuation. As the revenues and expense lines change, it's 5% of each, so it's 3.25 million, and total policy requirement is at 9.3. Moving on. So I just wanted to always highlight that we do have outstanding debt, and this is just the governmental funds. But you'll notice that in 2036, there's a drop off. That there's the loan from the renovations, 2014 City Hall renovations, that's the final year is 2035. So then you're left with just the two bonds at the very end, or two debt items, I should say. One's a loan, one's bond. So currently the governmental debt has committed over 19 million in principal and interest payments through 2043. And then we dropping off significantly in 2035. And then finally, next slide. So through the reviews that we will have tonight, we'll be looking at general funds primarily. Each department will review or provide their information on their departments. But what we're asking is that the City Council authorize the city to continue to provide the necessary services, actively fill open positions, hopefully adopt the budget as requested, and then if we find at mid-year that we do have enough, that we continue to fund the pension reserve as scheduled. So those are our recommendations, and then I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Carolina. That was a fantastic presentation and an amazing, organization of our budget and potential outlooks. So, do any council members have questions? And maybe I'll start with you, Councilmember Mackin.
I don't know that I have questions. Are you going to continue on some of what's in this report with more slides?
Not with more slides, other than what departments are going to provide.
Okay, because maybe I'll wait, because I have questions on different things that were in this staff report, but
More departmental or?
No, just I wanted to know, well, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
We had 25, 26 doesn't include reimbursement from New Year's atmospheric river storms. And it said staff is expecting to receive 1.9 million in reimbursements when fully collected. The original amount, as I recall, was 2.5 million. Is it 1.9 million that we're awaiting, or is it 1.9 million in totality that we would have if we get that FEMA payment?
No, for this period, we were still waiting for that, but it's the full 2 million that we're expecting in total.
Okay, because last year we were waiting for it, and we're still waiting for it, and FEMA's kind of MIA with all kinds of disasters. So do we have something as an assurance that we really think we're going to get this, out of curiosity?
Yeah, no, we got the majority of those funds, but it's just they're not reflected. We have to back them out because they're a grant. So we got the majority of the funds. I think we're only down to one project left.
Sure. The last time I looked at the report from FEMA on that disaster, we had 100%, I'm not going to say 100% of funds. All of the funds except for $23,000 were obligated, which means that they're approved for payment. But FEMA's payment goes to Cal OES, and Cal OES has to send it to us. And then Cal OES has to reach in there to the California Disaster Assistance Act to get their share of it. So it's approved for payment. It's just going through the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we should be seeing the majority.
Okay, because it's 2 years. It just seems like a long.
Do we have an expected timeline when we will be getting it?
I just really can't tell you that because I will tell you that, so that happened 2022. We didn't get approval on the last big project until January of this year.
Okay.
But we've gotten some of that money back into our coffers,
Yes, absolutely. In Caroline.
except
Carolina,
for a
right?
small amount. I think that was the question that Ms. Mackin was asking, and I
And I
think
could-
you answered it sort of backwards.
I could follow up as far as how much was posted, but we did, for sure, the commitment to us was the majority, if not all.
We've gotten most of it
yeah.
back already.
And then the payment, I can follow up on when we got the payment, but we did get a significant portion of the payment through Cowell, yes.
And I have another question. I'm on page 6 of 9, the very last line.
6 of 9.
That's page 41.
Page 41, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that. And it says, however, building activity within the city continues to grow. And I couldn't understand that in the context of what was said prior to that. And I don't know if I'm not trying to blindside you. What are you referencing there in that statement?
Looking through COVID activity, and as far as building, like with Sierra Point, we had the activity that was growing there. Programs offered to have not slowed down, offered to the community.
Okay, so building activity, you're referencing, it picked up after COVID, but you're not necessarily saying we're gonna have immediately in the next fiscal year a whole bunch of building activity
No,
necessarily.
No. It just
Okay,
says-
that's where I went. With the cost of materials, things actually seem to be slowing down a lot of places in anticipation of trying to figure out what's going to happen to material costs.
But there are plans, right, with long, looking not only just at current or budgeting years, but also long-term. There definitely are plans that will be
That it would
growing
it
within the
would
city.
potentially,
Yeah.
okay. And then, under positions, you mentioned the 3 positions, office specialists, community development, police records, utilities. And then it said, new position was not on that slide, admin management analyst, division, open space and sustainability. And I didn't understand what that is.
So it's not in the first year.
Mhm.
There's been a request to include, to add that position. And we've slotted it in the budget for the second year.
And since we have a sustainability position already, is this someone to assist them?
Yes, I can take this, Carolina. Through the chair, we currently utilize as a second staffer a fellow. The fellow is, they've always been great, but it's not a consistent experience. The last couple times we've seen, the last time we saw a fellow leave early, and the growth and sustainability activities in the city suggested to us that a second position may be necessary, and we're contemplating it for year 2.
And if I might add onto that, Mayor, the challenge we have is that because we get a fellow or an intern every year, a large amount of the sustainability manager's time is retraining a brand new person. So we have some incredible inefficiencies. We've had some really wonderful fellows and interns, people we would have loved to have kept, but it's just not sustainable to keep going on like that.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
All right, Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. Good questions, Councilperson Mackin, because you answered one of my questions here regarding the open space and sustainability. Of the new positions that are listed on page 40, are these in priority order? So we've got office specialist, and engineering technician. Are these in priority order?
No.
Okay.
This
Are
is
these all
more of
for
a
immediate
department.
hire? Are these immediate hire?
Yes, for the full year, yes.
Great, thank you. And then moving on to page 43, or page 8 of 9 in your report. So You're currently working on the master fees study, and we're really excited to see those results. So what we would do, and I'm just asking the question so I understand the process. So when we get those results, we would sit down as a council again, have a discussion, and we would just adopt whatever fee recommendations or changes we want, and then the budget would be reflected at that point.
What would be suggested, result of the rates, how we compare to other cities, areas of recommendation for increases, or in some cases decreases. And then you would have the opportunity to accept those recommendations. We wouldn't necessarily adjust the budget immediately. We could take it into consideration for a mid-year adjustment. Or you can wait until the following year, because once you accept those rate increases or rate changes, I should say, it's going to take, I believe it's 60 days, 45, 60 days, I'm sorry, I forget which, in order to implement. So you might not necessarily see all of those within, for the full year, obviously, but, it may take a while for some of them to kick in depending on the area of the part of the city impacted. So it's up to the council. We could for sure provide looking at activity if it warrants an adjustment at mid-year, or we may decide to come back for the mid-budget year, right, between budget years to make those adjustments.
Got it. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay, Councilmember O'Connell?
So on page 41, when you're talking about fund balances, middle of the page, you say leaving it talks about our reserves and fund balances, and it says leaving an unrestricted and available amount of 3.9 million, which we recommend be used in fiscal 25-26. So you're recommending we use our entire fund balance?
No, just that you make it available. That you don't restrict it and say, add to any restrictions, that it becomes available.
Okay, well, that's not how I read it. It says, use it.
No.
Let's use it.
Well, only what we're proposing is whatever are in the budgeted items.
And so in this current budget, we don't have any of our capital projects.
Correct.
And we know we have capital projects that we need to fund. We have things we need to do, and they're not looked at all in this budget.
Not in this budget, but I want to check. I'd have to double check if we're including any of the matches in here, but I'd have to double check that.
And through the chair, that's been our practice, is to do it in the odd years, first of all. Second of all, given that the council created a priority for next year on facilities, and we're expecting to have significant conversations with the council, it does make some sense to wrap some of that into that discussion as well, and then be prepared to adopt something for the next year.
For not the upcoming year.
Correct. We're not recommending expenditure, we're not recommending any new capital projects right now. Right.
Not through this budget, is what you're saying, yeah.
So anything that came up would have to be just out of general fund and out of the available reserves.
For which piece, though?
If you mean an unanticipated project, or if it's anticipated, it would be in a plan. If it's unanticipated, then we would have to take that on as it comes. And that may mean general fund, it could be other sources.
Okay. And then we're going to be going through individual budgets for the departments as we go through this.
Correct.
Okay. I'll save my questions for there.
All right, Councilmember Davis?
I don't have any questions at this time.
And Mr. Mayor, we're coming up on 9:30, so I just wanted to do a time check with the council.
Yeah. So, Yeah, it has been 3 hours, and Jeremy, you were anticipating that our budget hearing would take 2 council meetings to complete?
Well, it's at the pleasure of the council. Staff is here tonight to continue through to as long as the council would like to do this. But we do have 2 meetings, so we have available space on the 26th to continue the conversation should the council wish to do so.
Okay, so, with that, would it be the council's pleasure to continue or to move on to the next, to continue it to the 26th?
I've developed a pretty significant headache that came on at the end of our transit conversation. So I would be appreciative if we didn't extend the meeting too long. But I would be willing to chip in another 20, 30 minutes if that was the council's pleasure, but not much more than that.
Okay, well, maybe we get through Carolina's presentation and then save the department heads their breakdown of their budgets for the next meeting. Does that seem?
I do also feel bad that everyone's here, and maybe if I don't know, if we got through some of your presentations, would you still need to come back next time, or?
Yes, we'd want to complete all of the presentations. So, I mean, I think at this point, we're anticipating coming back regardless. So
Every staff member, even if they've already given their presentation, they would still come back.
those staff members that are available, some have, we may need to cover in some cases, but we'll take care of that.
Well, the other question is if you plan on, if you desire to ask questions from each department at the time they're presenting to.
Yeah.
That might limit those that have to come back.
I'll make this recommendation. I don't know that a couple presentations will matter much this evening, and I really appreciate the staff being here, but understand that there was an extensive conversation earlier tonight, and we'll make ourselves available on the 26th.
How heavy is the meeting that you're projecting on the 26th?
Well, at this point, it's just this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just hate to see us in the same position.
Yeah,
No, there won't be anything else. The commute.org one was time sensitive.
Yeah, it was.
So there shouldn't be any other items. So I do have a question for you, Jeremy, or to Tom. It is a public hearing, so do we have to provide opportunity for the public to ask questions, or can we continue the meeting to the 26th and
It was agendized, Mr. Mayor, for the notion that there would be at least a second meeting, so you don't have to provide it tonight. You can as a courtesy, but legally you can wait till the full presentations are done at the next meeting.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you for that, Tom. All right. So
Mr. Mayor, could I
yeah,
make a request?
Yeah.
2 years ago, we got a pie chart with all the departments. So if some of this is going to move to the next meeting, I think it's really valuable both for us and for the public who might not want to read through the entire budget report to see what the departmental breakdown is. If it would be possible to have that by the 26th.
For the total general fund, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
this one shows the overall budget and it's the department breakdown.
High contrast for Terry.
Or at least just not similar colors next to each other.
there you go. All right. Okay, and I'm good with my questions. Carolina, you've done a great job here, so I'm confident with it. So, all right, so we'll move the budget hearing to the 26th. Do we need to have that be a more formal recommendation, Tom, or can we just give direction? Or do we need to make a motion on that?
You don't need a motion, but you do need to, you've just done it. You need to notify the public that you are continuing the meeting to the next, to the 26th, which you've just done. And other than that, you don't have to do anything else tonight.
All right, thank you, sir.
On this item.
Great, okay, I appreciate that. Okay.
Can I make a motion to extend the meeting till, till 10?
Oh.
I mean, that's 30 minutes, or 28. Do you want it less than that?
Yes, 9:45.
I think we can get through whatever we need to do in hopefully 10 minutes or
Okay,
less.
I will make a motion to extend the meeting to 9:45.
Okay, do I have a
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so staff reports, item K.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, anticipating a very lengthy meeting tonight, I did not prepare a report on this item. I'll have an extensive one on the 26th. Thank you.
Okay, great. Moving on to mayor council matters. Item L, county-wide assignments and subcommittee reports. So, we have it in writing for the subcommittees. Does anybody want to report out or have any questions? All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have a PCE report.
Yep, countywide, absolutely.
Okay. First of all, number of customers utilizing PCE as electric provider has jumped up to an all-time territorial high of 97.3%. Keeps growing. Also, there was an agreement signed with Wright Battery Energy Storage System. It's a second phase of the Wright Solar Project near Los Banos, 200 megawatts of energy. And when solar is producing at a lot of peak of the daytime in the summer when the days are long, there's excess energy and the production has to be curtailed because it can just overload the grid. So you have to shut the solar down. And it's kind of wasteful. So having the battery storage will allow us to bank that energy. This particular project near Los Banos will be up to 80 megawatts. Can be used anytime, demand peaks. A lot of the project was delayed due to tariffs and cost uncertainties, which we've heard a lot about. The construction will start in September, anticipated operation date of June 2026, very soon. And there's a lot of energy-related legislation I spoke about last month that was introduced in Sacramento, and most are moving still through committees, so I don't have an update for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Mackin. Right, any other countywide?
I have a question for the Sierra Point Parkway Parks and Open Space Committee, Subcommittee. In here, there's a request that the subcommittee would like to ask council to allow. And I don't know if that's something they need direction from us tonight, or it can wait until the next time we meet.
Either way.
Yeah, the request isn't really a request, it's just an update. It was written that way, but it was a misunderstanding of that. So, it's just providing an update.
Okay. So the request is.
Yeah, exactly.
A request. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On updates on subcommittee reports, I did have a SFO roundtable meeting last night, and it went well. And the good news is that the FAA has reappeared at our meetings. We didn't get notification that they were going to be coming to our meetings again until that morning, but they have decided that the administration will allow them to attend, and that is hopeful for us. And then on this coming Thursday, I've been invited to an all-day symposium at the airport where UC Berkeley and some other groups are working with the airport to get some information on ETOL, so the unmanned drone type vehicles, and what impacts the airport and their workings are going to need, and what impacts cities are going to be having. So I've been invited to attend that, and will be doing so, and looking forward to coming back with some information about flying things through the air.
No, that's very interesting.
May I ask you a question on that very quickly?
What's that?
May I ask you, is the ETOL, all of those drones, are they to be handled by air traffic control?
airports cannot restrict what kind of aircraft come onto their property. So yes, if the FAA makes them legal, they will have to find a way to allow them.
Does allow them, but does it give them a wide berth so?
We
it's
don't know.
not- Okay, so we just,
We
it's
don't know.
evolving, okay.
That's why it's taking all day.
Yeah. All righty. Councilmember Kern, you have a countywide?
I've got 6 things here, but I'm going to knock this out in 45 seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
time you.
The mayor and I went to the San Mateo County Council of Cities dinner at the San Mateo Police Department. We've got an absolute amazing demo of their drone technology. And some really good call outs on this because I got pretty excited about it. When a drone takes off from the police department, the camera immediately self-levels and it does not look down due to privacy concerns until it reaches its coordinates. And so they were talking about how private it actually is. Pacific is looking at using drone technology to carry a payload. So if somebody was out at sea and they needed a life jacket, they could get that out to them almost instantly, which is really amazing.
Cool.
Councilperson O'Connell, you might be interested in this. If a police drone senses it's in front of a moving aircraft, it has the technology to get out of the way. So I think that's pretty amazing. So I think the dinner was overall pretty informative. I attended the League of California.
Not as fun as ours, though.
It was not
Saying.
as fun as Brisbane's, for sure, and everybody called that out.
Good. I was about to make that comment as well. So.
I attended the League of California Cities LGBTQ caucus meeting, and I was proud to announce that our pride flag flies 365 days a year. People were really taken with that. Spent a Saturday with the Housing Leadership Council on affordable housing. It was a bus tour. We got to see Kiku Crossing in San Mateo, the amazing Veterans Village in Colma, and the Teachers Housing in Serramonte Del Rey in Daly City. I attended that just feeling like I needed to get a better handle on affordable housing, and I came away extremely inspired. These are actually complete functioning communities with amazing features. We had our library JPA governing board meeting to go over the budget, but there was a gas leak, so they sent us home. So that'll be ongoing. The San Mateo County Pre-Hospital Emergency Medical Services Group, JPA, we approved that budget 2 weeks ago, so we're in good shape there. And we had a Caltrain local policymakers group where we focused on the corridor crossing strategy on the go forward. So,
You were busy.
yeah, I was busy this time around.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So, Councilmember Davis and I also had the North County Fire JPA meeting where we approved their countywide budget with pretty much
We received their annual report.
annual report and their allocations. No changes. 5 minutes, done.
Doesn't say 6-minute meeting.
Great.
Through the chair, Councilmember Kern, that was 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Thanks for counting.
All right. Written communications. I know we received some about item J.
Okay, we received correspondences from Rachel Ennis regarding concerns regarding permit parking program on Thomas Avenue. Linda Montenegro Detmer regarding CSSC. Also a correspondence regarding request for clarification and status of proposed quarry redevelopment project from Vicione, Brown, Hohen, Jacobson, Fryer, Later, Latham, Coleman, and Evers. We also received postcards, anonymous postcards regarding San Bruno Mountain Watch and the quarry project. And we received a second one. And these are all kind of anonymous. They are like personalized. Another one was received from John Swan, Sean Miller regarding concerns about warehouse light shielding and development priorities in Brisbane. Perthena Biosciences Inc. workforce reduction. Sparks at Our Park from Lila Seanest. Postcards from Linda Santa Cruz, Jenny Green regarding the quarry, Sarah Duffy, public comment for June 5th, meeting agenda item J. Alina Zavodnik, shuttle service agenda item. Stephanie Wilson, Brisbane free shuttle service. Stores Hohen and Beth Grossman, please continue funding the commute.org shuttle item J. Anonymous, regarding the Brisbane shuttle program. Nancy Laksamana, Brisbane shuttle to Caltrain and BART. To Viray shuttle. Grace De Hoya shuttle. RJ Tolentino, retain full service, please. Linda Contreras, Brisbane shuttle. Prem Lal, Council new business item J, support for full shuttle service. Natalie Ocampo, item J, support fiscal year 25-26. Robert Larson, commuter shuttle to BART. Chris Florkowski, public comment, City Council, consider and provide direction and support for the Brisbane shuttle program for fiscal years 25-26. Zachary Arbori, commute.org, commuter shuttles are vital. Yanitza Albino, support for Brisbane shuttle program. Rachel Ennis, Brisbane shuttle support letter for 6-5 council meeting.
All right, thank you, Ingrid. That was a lot. That was like Councilmember Kern. Just busy. Yeah, no, it's a compliment. All right, moving on to oral communications number 2, and I do have a slip, and I appreciate your patience and hanging out with us for a little over 3 hours.
Absolutely. I'll be brief. This was wonderful. Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening or good night. My name is Marjorie Ruiz Hidalgo. Thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself. I am your PG&E local government affairs representative for the 21 jurisdictions on the peninsula. I wanted to come say hello. I am your day-to-day single point of contact, and this includes department heads and senior staff, whom I've already said hello to. I started in late April. I am still learning the job, but my commitment to you on the record tonight here in person is that I am available and I will do my utmost to help you serve your constituents. But I am so thankful that I do not do this by myself. I am part of a whole PG&E team based out of the San Carlos Service Center, and this includes gas and electric crews, emergency response, service planning, vegetation management, and everyone responsible for the customer experience. We're here. Please reach out. I will be reaching out to you to schedule meetings, to say hello, hear priorities, comments, concerns, anything you'd like to chat about. I will leave business cards with the clerk.
Okay, great.
Councilmember, I hope you feel better soon.
Thanks.
That was a minute and a half. Thank you.
There you go, and I appreciate that very much.
Right
Thank
on
you.
time.
All right. Paul, I know you wanted to talk under oral communications number 2.
Get into something else.
All right.
You know, I'm not a big talker.
Yeah, we know that, yes.
So I'm curious about the meeting with Mayor Lurie. And is that going to be a public meeting to meet with him?
At this time, no meeting has been scheduled.
Is it going to be a public meeting if you do meet with him?
Well,
To be able to share something that I had?
how about this, Paul?
Yeah.
I appreciate the
No,
question.
I don't. I
Yes.
won't take up your time. Like I said, I wasn't going to discuss it. I just was wondering if it was going to be a public meeting. But if we can meet and you can convey the idea I had to share with them,
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
you'll make sure it gets to them.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, man. All righty.
Mr. Mayor, we have a raised hand from Michelle Salmon.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering
Hi,
where she
Michelle.
was.
Mute. Thank you. I finally got to unmute. I have a request for the city council that as soon as possible, we enact a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in all residential areas of Brisbane. Please. 20 miles an hour is fast enough to get to where you're going. Anything faster than that becomes dangerous on our narrow streets. People already don't pay attention to stop signs. And so I would recommend a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in all residential areas of Brisbane, including the Northeast Ridge, San Bruno Avenue, all the upper streets, any residential. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Michelle. All right, anyone else online? Ingrid, okay, well, then we will adjourn tonight.
Should we make an announcement about Night in Little Reno?
Oh,
I won't make it.
Okay,
well,
okay,
you
okay.
know what, Frank, you did such a great job at counseling citizens.
Night in Little Reno.
No, he did. He was a champion.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, I gave it a big plug, yeah. Well, Saturday night is a night in Little Reno at Mission Blue Center. We've got roulette, we've got human slot machine, we've got blackjack,
Bingo. Bingo.
and bingo, yeah. And entertainment by Leanne. So it's going to be a big night. If you've not gotten your tickets yet, they are still for sale.
I told you, you did a good job.
Good job.